work session. Councilman Conyers is out of town. Councilman Boone, I just got off the phone with him. He is not going to make it here on time. He is out of town trying to get home. But we're going to listen to budget presentations from the utilities, specifically in this order: gas, electric, water, sewer, and then recreation.
Electric and gas, because gas is not printed out, and I didn't know Robert wasn't going to be here, so I'm going to print out gas for y'all.
All right, we'll move on to, we can move straight to electric then.
We thought, yeah, we were thinking they had laptops. Water and sewer's not printed out.
We do have laptops. Did they get pushed to our laptops?
No, we've got, yeah, Robert sent us the gas on our.
I printed mine just in case.
Bring it.
Thank you.
But I'm the only one that has it.
All right. I left my glasses in the car.
Jay, do you want a paper copy by
Yeah, I'll take a
chance?
paper copy.
I need my glasses. I may have to call a recess and go get my glasses.
I can get by without mine.
I can't. I'll use yours. All right.
Headache.
What are these, 4.0s? All right. We're ready, Joe.
Okay. I guess for starters, did you all, I sent each of you a copy of this, the last scheduled budget meeting, just so you all would have a chance to review them. And my spreadsheet I made, I tried to put as many notes as I could off to the side to kind of explain where my numbers came from, or, you know, to some extent, some explanation as to why it's in there. Since you've had it for a few weeks, did y'all by chance have any time to review it and compile a list of any questions? Or
Joe, I reviewed it about 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to need to be reminded.
Okay.
We got 30 minutes to do it.
All right, we'll start on personnel. Tip top. I had requested, currently Jeremy Morgan is our substation meter tech. He also performs our installation and maintenance of all of our SCADA system. That is a task really due to one person. He is fulfilling that role, as well as our substation maintenance personnel, our meter tech as far as programming and testing meters. Really, in my opinion, we need this position, a standalone position, due to the amount of workload involved. That's the reason I put that in there. Our lead electrician was in the 17 budget, and it was defunded. I think it's pretty obvious we have a fair amount of city facilities that require maintenance on the electrical end, not just in the utility construction, but on the interior as far as lights and receptacles and stuff. I put that back in there.
Joe, do we have any idea what the SCADA technician, what the grade will be on that? Or what do you expect? Would you like Jeremy to stay in doing that role? Is that?
Well, that's a discussion that I'd like to complete with Richard. You know, part of me, I would.
Yeah, and one thing we're looking to do is on the organization chart, set up an engineering department which would house the SCADA and the mapping system. And that way those costs would be shared by all the utilities. So as Jeremy does now, he supports the SCADA, and it's hard to track which department he spends most of his time doing that for.
Right.
Now, the work order system we implement may allow us to be more specific with that, but if we can set up a department and have people strictly focus on what the SCADA needs are and what the mapping needs are, I think it'll serve every department better. But we hadn't gotten to the point yet where we're defining the roles of each job description. You know, there'll be some entry level people, and then there'll be some more advanced people.
Okay.
SCADA has grown, you know, to I don't know how many. Back when Jeremy first started, the original SCADA system was really implemented for our substation, you know, viewing and controlling, and it's grown to how many lift stations you have online now?
Plus a couple of wells.
Right, so it's you know, it's kind of getting a beast of its own nature, so it really needs its own staff dedicated to that. Next on the list was a 2 groundmen. Our line crew currently consists of 4 linemen. One of the linemen who is, because of the defunding of the 2 electricians position, he has been fulfilling the role of electrician, changing out light bulbs and all that maintenance stuff. He's shown interest in wanting to stay in that capacity, and so if those 2
We didn't, Joe, let me
positions
correct,
were-
we didn't really defund that position. Those positions went unfilled for well over a year. And
Right.
so they were eliminated because we didn't think that they were needed. Now, we've talked about that, but let's not say they were defunded. There was nobody in those positions. They were unfilled positions for over a year.
Fair enough. Anyway, so if Conrad were to still pursue the lead electrician position, that would create a vacancy in our line crew. I think to be responsible as a utility, we should have 4 linemen prepared to work. You know, we have to be prepared for not just normal duties, but a hurricane, a tornado, that event, to having 4 bucket trucks and 2 digger derrick trucks, having staffed with 4 linemen would be useful. Having a apprentice lineman who is a mid-grade lineman learning the trade and the skill and the operation, having a groundman on the ground is a requirement. So having 2 extra groundmen would complete our group of 4, 2 full crews. And then the next spot, I put groundman on call. For safety reasons, we should have a groundman on call just the same as a lineman on call. In the event a lineman is called to a power outage of some sort of fashion, if he, has to get in the bucket and go up and work on high voltage, to me, for safety reasons, we need to have a groundman available, during, whether it's hunting season or, whatever be the reason, having somebody on staff, designated to hold call to assist the lineman is recommended. I have a mapping technician. Along with our SCADA system, our mapping is getting equally in depth and needing personnel in place to modify and keep up the maps that we paid, like our distribution model that we just paid. It's a great tool that we have, but if we don't keep it up, it doesn't, it's not going to benefit us as greatly in the future. If we don't have somebody in place that can give their undivided attention to it. And it's not just on that or GIS mapping. If we do purchase the software and implement a GIS map, it'll need to be updated as well. So, and then bore machine operator. Currently, our bore crew consists of 2 people: a underground foreman who is a more experienced equipment operator in the boring industry, and a equipment operator 2, I believe, who is more a beginning level. In the event, for example, next week Brandon is on vacation, it kind of shuts down our bore operations, and bores are becoming more and more and more and more prevalent. So I think if we were to change that equipment operator 2 position to a bore operator, a more experienced position, in the event that Brandon is on vacation or sick, whatever, we don't come to a standstill. Any questions?
Back up to this first page, administrative costs. Where do the majority of those Joe,
I think that's a shared cost of the meter readers, the cashiers,
Through all the
treasurer, every finance,
Okay.
purchasing, every administrative support entity that drives the utilities, and in part some of the rest of the city as well.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And so, Joe, if you consider that 2 of these positions, at least the 2 electrician positions, were actually originally in the 2017 budget, we're asking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new spots for electrical. Is that
Hang on just a second.
6, I see 6.
So and it was kind of, I'm asking for a little extra grace and mercy on this is my first budget. So when I have the groundman on call, that was just basically to budget the hours. The groundmen are currently on staff, so we have, 4 linemen. We have a line foreman and 3 linemen that are on call. So they rotate call, one call every 4 weeks. So, having the 2 extra groundmen will basically even out, and a groundman will be on call once every 4 weeks as well. So I put groundmen on call, and if you look on my notes, and trust me, I noted it to pieces over here. It is basically budgeting the overtime hours associated plus holiday and all that, just to budget the actual time.
So taking that groundman on call off as an item, we got the SCADA technician, 2 groundmen, the mapping technician, and the board machine operator. So, okay,
Correct.
all right.
Ready to go to training and school travel? The advanced lineman training is part of the APPA's training for our, I guess the experience level tiers in our department the base level would be a groundman, then they would graduate after training and experience to apprentice, and then they would graduate to lineman, and this is just that's the advanced lineman. That's the top-out training. That's the guys that have completed the apprentice program and have experience and ready to go into more detailed, extended training. The apprentice training is the mid of the pack, I guess you could say, the second level of training, all provided through APPA. It's up in Montgomery. We've had 1 current employee complete the entire course. It was very, very well. He enjoyed it greatly and learned a lot. We've had some former employees that went, a great deal through it and are now elsewhere. The E&O conference, that's the Electric Cities Engineering and Operations Conference held in Birmingham. Line foreman training, that's for line foremen to go and get advanced training, and especially in leadership, more of a leadership role instead of a trade training. The regulator training is, we've never gone to a regulator school, which in my opinion is very important. We have regulators at every substation. They require maintenance intervals, and we need to be exposed and trained in that. So for maintenance reasons, we'll be able to schedule all that and hopefully perform some of the maintenance in-house.
So wouldn't we have to sub that out when that needs to be done now?
Correct. Well, we don't even maintain our regulators now. There is no process. So that's what we're wanting to do, is create a substation maintenance process. And part of that is training and schooling of the equipment. IMSA training is for our traffic lights. We're really required to have IMSA certified at least level 2 traffic light technicians to work on traffic lights. I was a level 2 trained technician at one time, and my cert lapsed unbeknownst to me. So we do need to have somebody trained in that because we have many traffic lights to maintain. Meter school is held in Auburn. It is training on programming of different types and installation practices of our many different meters that we have on system. Distribution apparatus school is the kind of the ground level, more of an implementation type of new products that have come out in the industry to keep us up to date on new, latest and greatest equipment and procedures, practices, and whatnot. It's held in Auburn. Meter tech training, that is if a substation meter tech, we have a new substation meter tech come on staff, I would like to send them to training. Jeremy Morgan was researching where that would be available. At the last meter school, there were training events available, but he did not document them. So there is training available. I just don't have the information on this. And then SCADA training is part of our platinum package that we've already paid for in 17, but it's all the new features and methods available to us in our SCADA system to keep it up to date and getting data that we need from it to be useful. Any questions on that? Professional services, miscellaneous electrical engineering. I budgeted $30,000 based on actuals to date, especially with the substation project coming up. There's going to be a lot of, there'll be many associated with the project that will be in that scope, but as far as the actuals in 2017, I think we were like 26,000, somewhere around there. So, but I know we just approved 20,000 for now, and I'm not sure how far that reaches out. If that's a calendar year from date of approval, or is that just for the fiscal 17 year? I'm not sure how that works, but. Computer expenses, the only part of this that I put in here was vehicle computers and hardware. I've been under the impression that in 18 that Munis would be hopefully rolling over into work orders, and in the event that does take place, I'm very excited and hopeful that everybody else is too, to get to become paperless, catch up with the times here and get on computers where we can be much more efficient in our work order processes. That's the expense that I put in there, and all the 2X support and all the other firewall. That is a Jeff Montgomery could touch on that if you had questions on that.
Jeff, if you can hear me, what's the 2006 or 17 budget was 48,000, and the 2018 is 65. Where's that 17 extra 17,000 coming from?
37.5%.
I'd be willing to bet it's the online mapping, the
Well,
11,664.
Yeah, and I see Munis support in there. Is that? You did hear me. Just heard my name.
Jack was asking the 48 and 17 and 65, 265 and 18. What was the difference? I said it was probably the online mapping, 11,664, but they're saying there's Munis support of 9,800. What does that encompass?
The Munis support, that's broken out between all the departments. So that's just your share of the Munis support. Also, I don't think we got a clear picture of the electric budget for IT last year, because we had it all combined into the general fund. And this year we've broken it out again. So that number really probably
48 may just be an.
it's just, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, these are pretty much set cost of renewals and.
Is there anything on there that would be new for this year that you can see just by looking at it?
Computers would be new, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Joe's added for the vehicles to do the work orders in.
The new cost will be management and actually getting everything updated.
Right.
Because there's a lot of, each module that's in each department, until we could do the utility billing update, we couldn't do any of these. So we've had them for a long time, but that's just it. We haven't used them. So a lot of it's going to be training. And really wanting to bring a management system in that can do that, because he wouldn't be able to do anything else if he tried to manage this. So we really do. If left to do it on our own, we've been doing this for how long? Over 4 years. And we're in the same place until, like I said, when we updated the utility billing, it's a huge start to do all this other stuff.
And again, that online mapping is new for us this year too.
Is the Munis support new, since we just kind of got that rolling?
No, we've been paying that each year. It's it's about what 49,000
I'm not sure.
total. It's around 50,000. Let's just round up, and then we just break it out between each department.
do see one thing that I have failed to add, speaking of Munis. The remainder of the Munis modules is gonna be about 41,000, and that's gonna be split 4 ways. And it's gonna go into this training, school, and travel budget, so we'll need to add another 10,000 to each utility under the training, school, and travel. That's my apology, I failed to add that, and I need to.
Is that just for utilities?
No, that's for.
Inventory.
That's for work orders. It covers.
Oh, so it's work orders.
Everybody, yeah.
But so why is it 4 times in
Because
utilities?
general
Got it.
has to share a portion of that too.
Okay.
You're gonna add that in there, Jill?
Yes, I will. The support, the Muni support is something totally different. It's just support for using Munis every single year.
Like the break fix scenario, like something's broken today, I call up and then they'll help me repair it. And it also pays for upgrades. Like we got an upgrade scheduled for Monday. We're jumping some versions, and so that's a big project, but that's included in that cost.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
All right.
Office supplies is a typical $2,000. Operating supplies, 50340. I have tools, PPE, safety, training, equipment. That number is $55,000. That's including personal voltage detectors, replacement hydraulic crimpers, hotline tools, training mannequin, barricade systems for climbing equipment. Or barricade systems and climbing equipment. Those are all, I mean, it's everything from training to normal operation safety equipment and tools. This 50340 is kind of an awkward little account. It includes, some of the X items, or actually all the X items out in the warehouse, as well as mechanic shop purchases and stuff. So it's kind of an odd one, but included in that, I have AEDs. I would like to see an AED on every vehicle in our department for cardiac arrest. I've communicated to a couple of different companies. I'm not exactly sure the brand yet, but I've got budgetary numbers on that with bleed kits, tourniquets. I had a pretty close call a couple of years ago, the night that the tornado came on. It was arts and crafts. I really needed a tourniquet that night, didn't have one, so I was the guinea pig, and I'm a big fan of tourniquets because it could have been ugly. But anyway, AEDs, we may go with a Zoll. I haven't made up my mind yet, and all the consulting, I would like to have an AED that in the event one has to be implemented, when the paramedics get there, they've been using Zoll brand. If you use a different brand, they have to pull all the cords and everything off and apply their own. It's not a retrofit. It's not a standardized cord. So, but anyway, long story short, I would like to have AEDs on every truck.
Does every truck have somebody qualified to use it?
They are bilingual and very, very, very simple to use. That we would, if we purchased them, they would have a representative come and train. But they're super simple. I mean, it's all audible. Bilingual, audible instructions on how to use it. It's very simple. But anyway, meter test equipment. That's $32,000. We're required to test in the event we have complaints. It really would be a great idea for us to implement a meter test program to capture lost revenues that otherwise we wouldn't know about. I don't know of anybody that has called and complained that their bill was too low. So, I mean, the only way we can capture that is have it on a rotation to test, especially our larger accounts. In order to do it, we have meter test equipment. It's like 11 or 12 years old. It's really outdated and very, it is not user-friendly. It takes about 3 times as long as it would with the newer technology. And then the miscellaneous electric department items were odding in from interior wiring stuff that wasn't necessarily on a work order, whether it's fixing these lights or receptacles or helping IT or whatever, just miscellaneous materials that we'd have to buy for daily operations and maintenance. Any questions on that? Maintenance of buildings. Our transformer storage now, in the event we have a transformer that gets damaged and leaked, we have a room kind of quarantined off in the back of our electric barn that has double doors to the exterior. Federal law requires the whole PCB contamination prevention. You know, you have to have rooms that are labeled and quarantined and locked and so on and so forth. So this room was the only thing we had at the time to make as a transformer storage room. And in the event of putting a transformer in that room, it's really not set up to do that. We're actually damaging our building trying to get the transformers in and out, in and out, in and out. So I would like to build a standalone building for that containment. And, you know, in conversation with Lance, we estimated $35,000 would cover the building, like maybe a 24 by 24 plus all the spill containment, the collection system to hold all the oil. And if it was approved, we would, you know, collectively agree with Public Works and other departments as a location on site to do that.
Joe, not to mention that there's only a piece of sheetrock between your guys and the PCB room where you're putting.
Right, and it's shared in the same HVAC system too, so it's just really not the best place to have a possible PCB contaminated transformer. General repairs, I have $30,000 in that. Our building is currently having foundation issues. I met with Lance. He agreed that about $10,000 for roofing and exterior maintenance, but $20,000 for general maintenance. Our office part of our building attached to our actual truck storage is the foundation is settling, and our two-story part of our building is separating, pulling away from the original part of the building. I don't know what that's going to mean, you know, down the road a few years, what kind of massive or more expensive repairs, or I don't know really what it's going to mean. I mean, we built buildings on a landfill. You know, there's so much you can expect out of that. So it is what it is, and that's why those numbers are what they are. A automatic gate for the warehouse. Robert, Dan, and I decided to split that 3 ways for a gate leading into the public warehouse down there is a sliding gate that's less than desirable. Some of the attendees at work, the guard shack, they have to open and close that gate, and it's a challenge for a young buck, and it's just less than desirable. That we can purchase a automatic unit with a card reader, just like we go in and out these doors, same difference after hours. That way we can monitor who goes in that gate, what time, and be able to ask why if need. Building cover for bore equipment, that's another shared cost between us. We have very expensive directional drilling equipment that doesn't have a home. It needs to, you know, to take care of it needs to be in a shelter. So that's a 3-way split as well between water, gas, and electric to build some sort of lean-to cover for that equipment. We just purchased a new, I can't remember the exact numbers, they were in Robert's budget, but the mud mixer was $30,000+. It sits out in the weather. The vacuum for that directional boring equipment, it was $30,000+. It's sitting out in the weather, you know, so to be responsible and take care of it. And then I have $14,000 to modify 2 barn doors, or just like the previous meeting where you all approved the digger derrick truck, the ride height of those trucks is a taller height than what our barn doors will allow. So maybe 8 or 9 years ago, we modified one roll-up door to a slider door, and it was about $7,000 to do that. We now currently have 4 of those trucks. We just bought a 5th one, so getting 5 trucks in and out of one door, I mean, you're rolling the dice. Something's going to get damaged. It has happened in the past. It's just too hard to get 5 trucks in and out of one door, and these are large, you know, tandem axle trucks. So I would like to convert 2 more sliding barn doors. That's the cheapest approach I could make to shy of, you know, building a new barn with the right height doors. That's the best I could do. Any questions on that? Maintenance of the plant. to my knowledge in the past, maybe maintenance of the plant and capital, this type of large items weren't really, to my knowledge, weren't really broken out such as this, but our pole inspections, we're several years overdue on a system-wide pole inspection. The numbers in that are, if you want, I'm probably getting close to my time limit, Jack.
We're 2 minutes over, but go ahead.
2 minutes over.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
We're halfway done.
Go take care of this.
We're halfway done.
Okay, so, but anyway, all this is in my notes. I just didn't want to drag something out. If you guys want to say, hey,
Yeah,
I'd
let me-
rather read this from my recliner.
Is tree trimming, is that looks like a big number, is
That's a
that?
contract service.
Contract
Okay.
service, and that's the same. I pulled those numbers from historical,
Okay.
I tried to get them to hang the lights too, they said no.
right? Yeah. Vegetation spraying, transformer repairs, the majority of all this is based on historical, if you look at my notes, it says based on 15, 16, 17. SCADA maintenance, substation maintenance. Substation maintenance is probably higher than if it was ever itemized like this in the past. $12,500 of that is to filter oil at Nickel Street and Fairhope Avenue substation. That was based off of oil samples and analysis that took place 6 months ago. It's just for conversation purposes. It's no different than you going to the hospital or doctor and getting lab work done. It's the same idea on the oil in these transformers, and it kind of gives you an idea of where the transformers are and their health.
So that budget went up by $105,000, or, roughly 30%. The pole inspections, that's a new line item?
It is.
So that's
It is.
63, and then the 42, I'm not exactly sure where the other 42 is in there, but is our contract for our tree trimming, is it scheduled to go up in FY 2018, or do you know where the other 40 something came from?
Not to my knowledge.
I think we got that bid
I think you said
fairly recently.
some of it was in substation maintenance, is
Right.
that right?
I know for a fact that 12,500 in the substation maintenance wasn't in. It was never budgeted. It was just, lumped into the original number.
I just want to quickly say, on OneNote, on Teams, do y'all have Teams on your computers?
Teams? What's that?
I think we can get
Apparently
that done. Well, I'm just saying, all of this is in the notes that he's talking about.
Okay.
When you click here by the number.
Oh, yeah, I don't have that on my. I
Okay,
don't have
it's
my-
just a
Oh,
software.
you're talking
we
about
need
if
to-
it's on my.
We can do it on your tablet, because
Yeah.
then it'll have all of this
Sure.
for you to review.
Okay, all right, cool. Very good.
Because you did a lot of detail.
Well,
Nice.
so, if this kind of isn't, a lot of this is thought process, and if you're not involved in it, you may have a lot of questions, and I tried to put as many notes as I could off the side, so maybe.
Well, that'll explain it too. When we go back and look at it on the MacBook, we'll be able to see that.
And I have no idea what the round for $175 is.
That's me, that's me, we all budgeted in like whole numbers, no like, that's just me.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Budgeted should just be like in whole numbers.
So I saw that when I first went to maintenance of the plant, and I've been trying to figure out what in the world did I think about that? I don't know, round something,
Round up.
they're round.
$175 worth of Roundup.
Okay, yeah, round up, there you go. That needs to be in vegetation
Nobody would have
spraying,
questioned that.
Always round up.
right?
It would have been under vegetation spraying.
Telephone, that's a, Mr. Montgomery. It's lower than last year, so maybe there's any questions? Dues, membership subscriptions, the same as last year. That's all of our typical dues for organizations. Maintenance of vehicles and equipment is up $25,000 from last year, and that's based off of, this year so far was, I'd have to go back and pull up the currents, but it was approaching, $90,000+ in maintenance, so, I would rather have enough in there than not. And and I also included $7,000 a year, that I'm not sure, I have very little, if any, historical information applied to, you know, our department's budget, so I had to kind of start from scratch and try to make some sense of it. And I know, I'm not too sure if $7,000 a year for our dielectric testing of our trucks was included, but I included that in there, so that's part of the increase. Uniforms, it went up a great deal. Currently, the shirt that we wear now for each employee, the employees that don't hold call, we buy them 5 shirts and 5 pants, and they have to be flame retardant uniforms. The guys that are on standby, we buy them 7 of each, because if you're on call over the weekend or at night, if you get called out in the rainstorm or whatever, and you happen to get nasty, it may be possible that you're having to wash clothes at 2 a.m. in order to have clean clothes to wear tomorrow. So we buy them 7 shirts and 7 pants. The shirts that we currently use that are in the bid, that won the bid, were less than desirable. The buttons will just come unbuttoned on their own. You rub up against something, they're not going to work. But that's what we have. That's what won the bid, and that's what we have to wear. So I would like to replace all those. I have budgetary numbers for those. Our jackets, our FR jackets, and this is all a requirement that we're required to supply FR. Our FR jackets are, several years old, stained with grease and stink, and I would like to replace those as well. So.
I don't want to get hung up on that. What is an FR jacket?
A fire retardant jacket.
Oh,
So
wouldn't fall under PPE. I thought I saw PPE in here somewhere earlier.
it does. So, and that's kind of a discussion of whether, OSHA governs PPE and FR. It's a requirement by OSHA, not uniforms, but they are considered uniforms as well, and they've been historically put
Well,
in
they could have gone in
uniform.
either place.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I'd be glad to put them in PPE if you'd like.
Yeah, that's right. It's easier to cut uniforms. You finally got it.
Right,
It doesn't look good if you cut PPE. You're like, you can't do that.
right.
I'm kidding.
So, any questions there? We good? Community development projects. So I asked around, I asked Paige and a couple of others as to, what really, I didn't know exactly what all was required of me to budget for community development, and the kind of idea was like, just, I'd already installed these numbers based off of what figures I had on Christmas lights. Other than that, like New Year's Eve, the crane rental, I'm not sure how much of that was our responsibility, but Paige and Jill said just hang tight and they will inject that and the note says move to general. Is that correct, Jill?
That should be in
Yeah.
economic and community development.
And that's what we kind of talked about, that the community development events and the charitable contributions, the contributions that we give out would really need to go in general, and then they can be made up for by the transfers from the utilities. Just kind of factor that back into those transfers from the utilities. Instead of dividing it all out 4 different ways, I think that may be a better representation of that. So, in the general fund, you will see that community development has been added over there, but then the transfers are greater from the utilities.
The tree lighting, I know that in past years was not correct. Like that one that says 81,430, that's not correct. But we can, anyway, it just, we did it last year. We put in every single thing that it actually cost.
Right, and these
And-
numbers are based off of that.
Right, and
those
we're still
numbers.
looking into, I found a person in Atlanta, that's their only business, it was Atlanta Gift Mart, because I was there for my store, and their only business is lighting up cities. And they come down here, they do it in 3 weeks, they leave, they come back, and take it down. You can either buy from them or not. A lot of times we don't recycle these. But we had Dan put together a scope, right? And then,
Right.
anyway, we'll get together on I just think this would take a huge load. Even if it was the same expense, we wouldn't be pulling from an already short-staffed department.
Right.
So, and
Well, the
we might
issue
save
is,
money.
in the fall and spring are two times of the year where some of our largest, especially transmission maintenance, can only be done during those times when loading is at a minimum. And we're always tied up doing, Christmas lights. We work from 6 to 10 in the morning, 6 to 10 at night. You work from 6 to 10 in the morning, come in, unload all the lights off of your truck, all the tree limbs off of your truck, get all the materials ready to go to do a job, and we get off at 3 o'clock. It's not enough time in the day to get a decent sized project completed. So you spend more time safing up. We spend a lot of time having to do cover up and high voltage work that, a lot of times the cover up takes longer to do than the job itself. So when your day is just trimmed in basic half, you can't get these type of maintenance jobs done. So it would be a great benefit to us if we could contract it out.
And not do anything different this year, but also look to citizens and find out input on just ideas.
Here's your strands, get to work.
Well, no, I'm just saying,
And a ladder.
it's a $300,000 expense, and it is good, and it's community development, it's great tradition, but just
I can
to
see
look
the
at
mayor
it.
out there in front of
Yeah.
Page and Pallet shimmying
I'm
up
fine
that
with
tree and
that.
wrapping them, hanging
I'll do
off the
that
balcony
between
from a
2 or 3
rope.
hours.
I think you can close the streets down and make it a big deal and do it, but
You talk everybody to do it.
Well, I just think that the community can help us with ideas too, but it has to be community driven. We're not changing anything this year.
Something like an adopt-a-tree program.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
I think it'd be a fun thing if you could close the streets down. I don't know how you'd work with liability.
Well, I'll give you an
insurance,
example, and it's not on, I don't think it's on city right of way, was the Methodist Church had asked me a couple of years ago, they said, if the city will supply the lights, we'll string them out there, but I think it wasn't that we could put them there.
Deal.
I think that there was a place we couldn't
I thought
offer
we
the
were talking
lights there
about
because.
taking this off.
Wow, that was a great deal.
We didn't do it, we never gave them any lights, huh?
Right.
Robert's gonna lead that.
Robert and Jay got elected and blew the deal.
So, any questions there? We'll scoot down to rental. It's the same as last year. Down to capital items. I was asked to, this year, I looked at all of our capital purchases and tried to lump them up into large items, look at historically what we have been spending, great sums of money, and in order to budget them. I guess you guys have seen on occasion where we'll come through a non-budgeted capital expense of a three-phase transformer. We can't buy the smallest three-phase transformer they make without it being, if it's bought at a capital item, we can't buy the smallest one they make without it exceeding the $5,000 non-budgeted item. So I think it would be best operationally for us to, I went back in the previous years and found, I know of some projects that are coming, and kind of round up maybe one or two transformers and included those numbers here so they would be then a approved budgeted item and not have to go through that whole process. But anyway, the Derrick truck, that's, you guys purchased that for us. The 46 kV switch is on. That was approved. The two pickup trucks, we had two F-150s in the budget approved for 17. After speaking to Dan and Deborah, because the Digger Derrick truck went, $30-something thousand over budget, and not having the two, one of those trucks was going to be needed for one of the electricians that could possibly be split off and not have, two or three guys on one truck. They could split out and do different maintenance issues. One of those was going to be used for that in that setting, so that didn't come about. So it was easier for me I felt like I was being a good Samaritan and washing the trucks to next year if possible. Not that they aren't needed, but the Digger Derrick truck was more needed than the pickup trucks. Magnolia Avenue distribution conversion, that is a stretch of overhead distribution from Bancroft going west all the way to all the way to Church Street. That has been a request in the past. It was on the 17 budget, and I put it back on the 18 budget because I didn't know how big of a wish that was from the community to have that put underground. I know the original quotes, I found them, it seems like last year I found them, and I noticed that the arts and crafts infrastructure wasn't included in that, so that stretch of Magnolia between Fairhope Avenue, between Section and Bancroft is where the food court is. There's a pretty large amount of infrastructure that needs to be installed there for that. If we remove the overhead, there has to be something in place underground for food court. I have 2 Sauber HDPE trailers. These are trailers that you may or may not have seen around town that hauls our real electrical conduit. We have 2 that are homemade. In the event that we do a large 3-phase project where we have to pull 3 individual conduits, sometimes 4 to 5 individual conduits, we have a hand-me-down gas department truck that we've converted to a 2-reel trailer that we are looking at getting out of service. It's homemade and just needs to go. So I would like to purchase these 2 trailers to replace that. Pole replacements from the pole inspection. It's been since 2000. What was it, Richard? 2000. The pole inspection.
2, I think you said.
2002, I think it was. It's been several years. We need to do pole inspections once every 10 years, and it's been a great deal longer than that. So we will have a lot of rotten poles in this pole inspection, which will require a lot of pole changeouts. So I try to budget that just so we can see in dollars and cents. It's not just the inspection. The results of the inspection will be a lot of infrastructure upgrades.
And one thing we're trying to do with the pole inspection process is get GPS locations and inventory on each pole so that when we do get this mapping system set up, we'll have asset management capability off of that.
And that'll help our community out a lot. I don't know if you've ever had a street light out at your residence or in your neighborhood. Many other utilities, more so than not, have a ID number on each pole, so you can say, instead of, hey, the pole down by Johnny's house, 4 pine trees down from the oak tree, that lights out type of deal. Each pole have its own individual ID number that they can give us in the event of a electrical issue or even a general maintenance of a street light out. My computer's messing with me. Pole mount transformers, that's just more the inventory items that were historically bought under the capital 16050 count that I went through the past years and found a good number to pick and got budgetary numbers to put that in for pole mounts, pad mounts, single phase pad mounts, 3-phase pad mounts, distribution switches. That's just typical inventory stuff that I felt is under the same idea of the 3-phase units where we buy pole mount transformers. The odds of it being over $5,000 is pretty good. So historically, they've always been bought out of the 16050. I've been speaking to Deborah and Jill and moving these type of items into an inventory, not just for the financial reason, but for the inventory tracking. There's no E-number tied to some of our largest capital equipment, which is transformers. So anyway, just a thought there. Roadway lighting, we spend a good deal of money on roadway lighting, so I budgeted that as well. North Greeno Road lighting replacement, from Highway 104 going north all the way to Sportsman's Marine. All of those poles in the median are high pressure sodium fixtures. They're a different style of fixture than any other fixture we have on our system. I contacted Cooper Lighting and AlDOT. Typically they would require us to do a state permit it's not one of the approved fixtures on AlDOT's approved list. I contacted AlDOT and kind of explained to them what it was I was hoping to do in the future, and they said, well, if that's, if this is the fixture you want to use, you can install it without a permit and go with it. So then they were actually kind of excited, wanted to come see it whenever we got done. So that's
And why do we want to replace them?
What's that?
Why do we want to replace them?
Well, I put it in as an entire project, but in the event that we're not allowed to do it as a project, as cars hit poles and as fixtures go bad, I can either replace what's there with a high-pressure sodium, which is being phased out, or I can start purchasing these LED fixtures.
So you're going from high-pressure sodium to LED?
Correct. And we do not purchase any more high-pressure sodium fixtures. We'll replace maintenance parts, but we're going all LED, even
Do
interior.
you know how
So
much that saves each year, or maybe we
Um,
can look at that?
I could provide that for you tomorrow, but not those numbers in front of me.
Right, okay.
Substation upgrades, that is the upgrade to our substation in a conversation with our consultant based on large draws of the project. Let's see, we said large draws were including the substation property, the engineering expense and capital equipment, including power transformers, breakers, regulators, and switches, were a lot of the big ticket items that are large draws up front in the project. It was estimated $9 million spread over the project. So in conversation with him, breaking it up in a $4 million budgetary number, and then a $3 million and $2 million was.
Is that what the breakdown was, 432?
Correct.
Okay, that's real helpful. Okay.
Any questions on that? It's a lot to chew on, but. I had fault indicator replacement throughout our distribution system. We have locations that have fault indicators, and that aids us in the event of a power outage or a fault it's spread all throughout our town, but it aids us in responding to outages in a faster time frame than without them. They're visual blinking lights on the distribution circuits in the event there's a fault in the fruit and nut area, because we have a circuit that goes to a T per se. The fault could be this way or it could be this way, and you install these fault indicators on the lines. In the event you get to that cross section, you can see which way the fault is instead of wasting your time going this way. It aims you in the direction of the fault to help get the power back on quicker. They were all installed about the same time, and I'm not too sure exactly how many of them actually still work. I noticed we had a fault down in the fruit and nut, and two of them at the intersection of Pecan and Section did not work at all. So, and it's due to age. They just all need to be replaced. Laptops for work orders. That's the actual purchase of the laptops. The part that was in IT expense were the bases, the truck mounts. Scroll back up and find that. Yes, that $5,000 in computer expense was for the tablet mounts for all the trucks, and this is the actual capitalized computer expense, purchasing the actual tablets or computers, whichever it is Jeff recommends that we use.
Okay.
Should have brought my mouse. And then I'm done. I'm getting there.
Right at an hour.
Pole yard rock improvements, our pole yard out on Young Street. Whenever we built the actual pole racks, we purchased about 10 loads of rock and rocked about half of it, and I estimated 10 more loads would finish the muddy areas to the west and the east of it. That's just some house cleaning stuff that I think would improve that. Substation security cameras, that was lumped up in the 2017 budget that we did not purchase for, I'm not sure if there were ideas or maybe the word was out that maybe some better technology was coming out that we wanted to hold tight and not purchase now and see what was coming out. In 18 or 19, a weather station was also approved in 17, and that is to overlay weather data over our loading for historical reasons, being able to look back, like if I know that I need to have a certain substation out on such and such day, and I can look at the weather and know that, next week on Thursday it's going to be roughly 89 degrees and X% relative humidity. You can historically compile that data from the past and be able to determine what the loading is going to look like. Then I have phase 1 of traffic light project. When I started looking through the information that Jimmy Cluster had on budgets, I found a traffic light project, and I got to asking questions about it. And if I'm not mistaken, Neil Schaefer had already designed the project, and it was replacing all the intersection lights, the mast arms. It was everything but replacing. It was everything but replacing the actual controllers themselves and the detection, which we are trying to purchase now, a newer technology of wireless pucks to do vehicle detection instead of cutting loops and intersections. But that project was broken down into phases, and I haven't been successful. I haven't had really a lot of time to do much digging and contact Neil Schaefer and find out and see drawings, but I know it was designed to a great deal because they had broken it down into the projects, but I knew it was in a budget and I wanted to reintroduce it, and basically for conversation. I know it was to bring us up to code on some crossings. There's signage issues that we don't have in place for PEG crossing. That is probably something we want to have for liability reasons, but I think the idea was once this whole project was completed, we would be current on all the requirements. So it was mainly for conversation. If generally everybody was on, saw it as something we needed to pursue or not. And then traffic light and controller detection upgrades is the other portion of that. And we're hoping to have on the next council meeting controller and loop detectors, or the pod detectors for Gayfer section and Callanan section as well. I don't know if you all have experienced the delay in the timing of those controllers, but it's to alleviate that.
Yeah, I want to go to the traffic light school that you put in the training and get familiar with how to do that, because you might catch me out there at 4 a.m. trying to finagle those lights, because they're terrible. I've been complaining about that for 2 years.
Right. So when they resurfaced, they cut the loop detectors, and I don't have an explanation for you as to why we have not replaced that as of yet, but we are in the process of doing so.
Questions, council?
Yeah, that traffic light project, is that all around town, or is that?
That was all of the downtown intersections. That would include, I'm assuming, and don't hold me to it, but I'm assuming it was including Morphe and Ingleside, Morphe and Section, Church and Fairhope Avenue, Fairhope Avenue and Section, Fairhope Avenue and Bancroft, Magnolia and Section. I think it included all. I'm not sure if it included Church and Magnolia, but it was replacing all the mast arms, all the fixtures, and installing PEDs, and the other portion of it was the detection and controls.
Any other questions? Obviously, we'll have some more to digest all this. It's a good presentation, though, very thorough. Appreciate all your comments and all of your, detail on all of these, and I'm sure we'll remember every bit of this.
Well, I
that's
just
why-
emailed Jill, and she can email this in just a spreadsheet.
With all the notes.
All
With
the
the
notes
notes
are
on
in the
it, right,
corner.
sure.
So it's excellent.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you all. No more questions?
Nope.
That was excellent, Joe, thank you.
Thank you. Next.
All right, are we going to go back to gas, or are we going to do water sewer?
It's all been messed up now, the order, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Richard's standing up, so he's got.
I've got copies of the gas. that have been made, so.
All right.
Just round up.
And I'm filling in for Robert. And I'm sure he put just as much time and effort as Joe did into his budget.
glass.
Although I'm not gonna be able to explain it nearly as detailed.
I'm gonna see it on mine, you can zoom in on that.
Yeah.
But we did talk about some of the projections for the revenue. Oh, y'all, and I don't have a magnifying glass, by the way, I apologize
What is
for
this, a
that.
4 font?
I will trade you mine for
Another
that
thing
one.
was it print that small.
I'll trade you mine. Okay.
Go ahead. I'll demand it somehow.
No, we tried to be a little conservative in the revenue projections, as I think I remember that being a topic from the last budget cycle. And I think we're safe with all of those. I think the natural gas purchases are safe in terms of revenue. We're looking to hire.
Well, on these actuals, are these June numbers?
Budget to
They're
date.
as of yesterday,
But you forecasted 2 months.
yes.
Oh, and you did do a forecast
Yeah.
for 2
Yes.
months, okay, thank you. You see, and if you look at, if you look at the actuals versus the budget, you see why I like conservative numbers there. Looks like we're almost
We had a hot
800,000 less,
Winter.
which is why you're conservative.
Most all the other numbers that were over. I can't say that. And expenses under, so.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, so we do want to try to hire one more service line technician, and we want to create a position of compliance safety and, or compliance and safety coordinator. We would continue to get regulations promulgated through DOT pipeline safety. And with the last inspection, we kind of piecemealed all the information together, and it's frustrating to try to go back and try to remember what you did when you have other people doing things, and you need, and Robert Fender was one of the entities that did the annual reports for us, and it became difficult to find some of that information. So we would like to go ahead and try to get a compliance and safety officer involved, and I think that'll be it'll be a promotion from within. I think that's fair, and I think we have the capability to do that. But in order to do that, we want to add a position, which would be a service line tech trainee. We added a little bit more to the travel budget and training. Oh, I wouldn't say we added much to it, did we?
$167?
Yes. That may be a typo. I thought we were going to add a little bit more to the travel and training
You
budget.
can add another 10 from Eunice.
I'm sorry?
You can add another 10.
10,000 from Eunice.
10,000.
She has to do that for,
Oh, okay.
but that's
We'll
under
add that in.
Okay. But there are some training opportunities that I'd like to be able to take advantage of, and some of them are part of our Energy World Net operator qualification package, and some of them are through the Alabama Natural Gas Association with the fall workshop in Leak City and Athens. It allows the personnel to, do some training with their peers, and you learn from other people, and other people learn from you, and I think it's good exposure for those people to for our personnel to have that. So we want to try to encourage a little bit extra training on that regard. I think the computer expenses and all that are pretty parallel with what Joe had described in his, so I'm going to try to skip through that.
Yeah, I think they're almost pretty close.
except $10,000, which will be added to each one.
Maintenance, I think as far as most of the expenses are fairly consistent. I'm going to get down to the capital items. Of course, as y'all know, I'm kind of a proponent of the cast iron replacement program. I want to try to insert some significant amount of progress into that program. I know there's some timing issues that we need to be concerned with in terms of being able to manage that.
What page are you on there?
I'm
You all the way to the back, all the way in the back?
all the way, yeah, we're on the capital accounts now, I know. But part of the mapping system upgrades we want to do involve being able to track the progress of that type of a capital improvement. We probably want to do some public awareness to where people know that we're going to be in there involved in that streetscape that they're going to have, and we're probably going to want to look at some of the sewer in there because we have concerns for some of the sewer infrastructure too when we go through there. So we want to kind of utilize that as the impetus to if we're going to be in on somebody's street in a block, we want to do the most we can with everything we need to try to look at it and be comfortable with when we leave that. If we're going to tear the pavement up, we want to take care of everything we can while we're in there.
Now, Richard, that 2.5 million to replace the cast iron, that's not replacing everything, right? That's
No,
just
sir.
making a first.
That's correct.
dent
I think it's going to be between $4 and $4.5 million just for the cast iron total replacement, the 16
Total
miles.
cost really about
Yes.
four, we'll go say 4.5. maybe.
Yes.
And this would be 2.5.
And, well, I mean, that's where we are and these are numbers that we need to look at, and I'm not, I know Jill's getting very nervous because, you know, she's trying to put this, no, she's not. She's trying to put this budget together, and she wants to kind of get a feel for where we are, but I have done a little bit of extra work in terms of looking at what what we would do in terms of debt service for these individual utilities with the substation.
Well, that with the substation data and
Right.
what you just want to, it's just a starting number, can let me go back to that plan I'd been working on for,
Yes.
yeah, almost completed, but
Right.
this
I
is, you
understand.
can adjust it, and then real numbers will really help too. That's good.
So I've got some handouts that I'm going to try to email you, I think, now that and I'll show you what we're looking at doing, just to give you an idea of what the direction we're trying to head. We've got 4 gas mains. One's on Cowpen Creek that's exposed. We got 2 on Fly Creek and 1 on Scenic 98. And I can't tell you, is it Sweetwater branch maybe? One of the branches on Scenic 98. I'm not sure which one it is. But we need to get those replaced. So we're wanting to utilize our boring crew to do that, but there are some costs involved in replacing those exposed gas mains. And of course, the automatic gate at the warehouse, I'm going to reiterate what Joe said. It's a monster to try to work, and people have gotten hurt trying to pull on, so a gate opener for that would be an extremely gracious gesture. The 6-inch gas mains on the main transmission line coming from our gate station are exposed on not adjacent to the right-of-way, but cross-country type right-of-way lines, and we need to get those
You
repaired.
lower how many you lower them? You putting them 2 feet underground, 3 feet? What, 2 foot?
These will be probably bored 10 or 15 feet underground.
Oh, wow.
We're going to get them out of the way. So whatever the erosion issue is with the stream bed that they're now exposed in, we're going to be far enough away to where we won't have to worry about this again. We're looking for some equipment for the line locate folks. Safety-wise, we're looking at some air packs. We've got a compressor and some portable hoses that go to mask, and they're kind of outdated now in terms of what we do with safety. So we want to improve our safety to the personnel. We have the 2 half-ton pickup trucks, the dually and the 3/4 state surplus truck. And I guess the lean-to at the barn is the portion the gas has for the directional bore equipment.
15,000.
And so that's where we are, and I guess all of you are aware, Robert's talking about retiring in February, and part of the reorganization is to look at how we can manage the utilities and looking at the parts of the utility systems that serve all of them, which would be this engineering department that I'd be talking about, where we can better develop the SCADA system. We can look at mapping for everybody, and then we can focus the supervisor roles in the gas would be construction related, and then this DOT compliance and safety related. So that's kind of what I'm thinking we can accomplish over the course of the next year. But, you know, there's going to be some transition to all that, and we just need to be certain about how we accomplish it.
Okay.
And these are the kind of things that we're looking at doing. This is what we'll be presenting in terms of, you know, in terms of answering the debt service questions and in terms of rate revenue that we would do with rate adjustments. What these graphs are pictures of our current rate, our proposed rate, one of our neighbors' rates, and then, you know, the people that we are adjacent to. So you can tell when we look at what it costs us to maintain our system, how that compares to what other systems adjacent to us take to maintain theirs. And I think you'll find that with the exception of the electric, it's borderline competitive today. The gas is pretty decent. Water and sewer, though, is just I wouldn't say we're giving it away because everybody pays a bill every month, but there's room to support some of this capital improvement that I'm talking about.
We need it.
And so, but it'll be a comprehensive package. It'll just be part of the discussion going forward.
It'll be yeah, like you said, it'll be a formula that consists of what gets transferred.
That's
and what
correct.
doesn't get transferred.
Oh, yeah.
What is not going to additional debt payment. We still have debt payments, and we're still retiring
There's
debt.
no
and
doubt.
that'll free up more money.
Certainly.
And that's what I was trying to look
Right.
at, too. And then rate adjustments.
Right.
But
And that's the truth of all that is that I'm not familiar with all the transfers, and I'm not familiar with how the accounting of all the funds are done now to know whether or not, you know, we're looking at having surplus money if we raise the fees for garbage service,
one
for
of the things
instance,
you
or
look at
the
is-
tipping fees. I don't know where all that
One of the things
fits
that you
into.
look at is when we have a net revenues in our utilities, one of the reasons that you want to have a net revenue is for improvements. Well, if you're making improvements in that year, you don't necessarily have to bank anything in that year. You put it back into your
Correct.
capital improvement project. You agree with that?
Any more questions on gas? And the other issue with doing these rate adjustments for potential debt service is utilities are seasonal. You have mild years and you have extreme years. So, you know, we're still hitting a moving target when we do this, and some of these projections that I'm doing are predicting mild years for utilities in terms of revenue. So.
Okay.
Dan, you gonna help with the water and sewer?
Yes, sir. Are you asking if he wants to or if he's gonna? I think the answer is, might be different.
My polite way of saying get up here and
Sit down. Let's see.
Yeah,
Water.
Jeff,
Oops, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out that we do have a
Here
couple
comes the
more
sewer.
departments after the utilities.
See, all these are the same.
Those are all water, yeah.
I thought we were gonna do
Right.
4 at 30 minutes apiece, so I was counting water and sewer as one.
Okay.
And then,
We can get
then
it.
adult rec and
We can
rec
get
are gonna go if we have.
That's fine.
we're gonna do our best.
And that's fine, and if we go 15, 20 minutes over, hopefully the councilman won't, get mad at me, but we just made up a good bit of time right there on gas.
Okay.
Did we set a cutoff time for this?
I said 30 minutes, 2 hours was cut off time,
Ma'am?
but
Oh, sorry. I got the large copy here. We'll do water first.
Okay.
You're driving.
I'm driving. All right,
Computer's tab.
I'm driving.
So I will, you have
Within the water budget, in keeping with what I've heard as far as conservative, this was a very unusual year. Even going along with what Richard was saying, for instance, the month of June, we recorded 12.19 inches of rain for the month of June. That's unheard of. My biggest season is from about May through September, October when we're pumping. So when we have a wet weather, it drives the pumping rates down. So when I looked at this, I looked at let's keep it conservative and see how we can work from there. There is a small increase, such as in our water sales, but I'm looking at development that I see is going on right now, and I know is going to explode a little bit here. We've got, just for instance, the apartment complex at Battles Road and Section Street. That's coming along at a very fast pace. We got Firethorn subdivision that is coming along at a fast pace. We got a new subdivision going out on 104 called the Verandas. I think that's a couple of 100-lot subdivision that's going in. So that's where I'm looking at that small increase. I'm hoping it's a lot more than that, especially it'll be if we have a dry summer. Any questions so far? All right. Next page, I was talking about our training in school. There's several organizations that the city belongs to that our operators need to go to these. One of the first things when I talked to Mayor Wilson was she is very pro training, keeping our employees trained. And Mayor, thank you for that, because that is such a positive thing for our employees. Our licensed operators, to give you an idea of the operators in the state of Alabama, there's only 3,500 operators, licensed operators in the state. Of that, only 650 of us are dual certified, meaning we have a license in water and wastewater. So it's a very small club, and that number is getting smaller. I just spoke to Adam about it Thursday. That number is, we're not seeing people come, so we've got to constantly keep these people trained. The guys that are coming in, we want them to get their license because it makes them more valuable to the city, and we can utilize their talents. So we have in our training, travel, and school, we've got the Alabama Rural Water Association. That's a class that goes on in March time frame. Now, currently that class is being held in Mobile, but after this 2018, it moves back to Montgomery. WEFTEC is the Water Environment Federation. That is the largest organization that goes on. That one, we have people from all over the world that attend that. Right now it's being held either in New Orleans or in Chicago. This year it's being held in Chicago. The American Water Works Association, which we've been a member since 1969, excuse me, is being held in October at the Grand Hotel. So we need to send folks to that class. Within these classes, how we keep up with the different environmental regulations are changing, because they change year to year in the water, they change year to year in the sewer. So this is how we keep these operators trained. And then if we have any miscellaneous schools that come up, such as Faulkner puts on courses from time to time that we can get these operators in and keep them trained if this happens to be in between theirs, because they have to, once they get their license, they have to maintain so many hours in a 3-year period. Excuse me, and can you give me that word, please? Sure. I am. How's that?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Did you go a little deeper when you spoke into the mic?
Pull the microphone up a little bit. I think it's too low.
No.
Like Barry White in there for a second.
I hear you.
Break out in the Glen
How
Campbell
is
tribute
it?
before it's
Like a
over.
rhinestone cowboy. Anyway, the miscellaneous schools that we have, we just recently, in one of these miscellaneous schools that Faulkner put on, was a wonderful class. We sent the gentleman off. He is now a certified operator through that class that we got him through Faulkner. So it was like a 10-month school, and he had to drive to Bay Minette, I think 2 days a week for this class. It's a very intensive program. Professional engineering, professional service, I left pretty much what we had in 2017 in there in case we needed to hire a consultant for some small project or something. We'd have some monies budgeted in there. Computer expense was, most of that was all in there. Everything you see was the IT director put all that in there. But you see that's in quite a bit. Different license support, firewall, Munis support. Maintenance of the buildings. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. We've got repair a roof at Well 5. When these buildings are built, they're built with flat roofs. Flat roofs leak. So we have an issue that we need to have that roof repaired. We've had other issues with other flat roofs. Lance has been a tremendous help in getting these things fixed for us. You see install the new auto gate at the warehouse. That's the portion in here. And the extension of the barn for the boiler ring, that's that portion of my department. Install a new AC unit at the plant. When the plant was renovated, we didn't do anything inside the building as far as AC, and it's on its last leg. Lance has worked on this thing, I think, till he's blue in the face for this, but we have a lot of equipment in there that must stay cool. Incubators that have to stay at certain temperatures. If they get out of it, it can throw the testing that we're doing off. I know we've spent several days down there, fans and portables, trying it while he was working on it. It's just time. It's time for the air conditioner to be replaced. Telephone, that was, the IT director put those in there. Dues and memberships.
Wait, did we skip over the maintenance?
Did we?
Yeah.
We'll skip over the maintenance. Yeah. Maintenance of the plant is not just the sewage treatment plant. It's not sewage, I'm sorry, the water plants. It's anything that goes on out in the water system. If we have a main break, the pipe is bought, any of the supplies, that's.
Level funding, am I saying?
Yes, they're again trying to be real conservative and watch every dollar we spend. I've been accused of squeaking a penny so hard in my pocket, but it's not my money, it's the city's money, and it's the citizens' money. So yeah, we want to make sure we spend those dollars very wisely. Our due memberships is our Alabama Rural Water Association, the American Water Works Association, and a new one, which would be the Baldwin County Water Distributors Association, which is most of the water providers in Baldwin County. It's a collaborative effort between those to share information, get together, and be members of this organization. In fact, Mr. Peterson is the president of this organization.
And we're not even members yet.
And we're not members yet.
But one thing this group is doing is promoting the lead and copper testing of all the schools for the school board. And we're going to be aggressive with that starting in September, just after school starts. And we're feeling good about working with the county school board and feeling good about doing that service for them. So.
Gas and oil, we left it the same. That's kind of hard to project because of it being a commodity on the market. The one-year projections you look at those, they're up and down like a yo-yo. So we just kind of left that where it's at. Same way with the maintenance of vehicles and equipment.
Hold on. You know, 2017 numbers are a lot less than the previous 3 years. What do we attribute that to? New vehicles or more fuel efficient? The fuel station we have, or what?
That just started. I mean, literally.
Yeah, that literally
I'm not
just
sure
started.
if it's.
Okay, I wasn't sure exactly when that
Which
kicked
one are you
in.
looking at?
I'm looking at maintenance. It's down. I mean, which is great. It's down a good bit.
Well, we dropped out a truck that I lost that had 270-something thousand miles on it.
We have another list of surplus that we'll be giving to y'all for, and we're also putting those funds, when y'all will get the actual budget book, we're going to add revenue so you can see where.
I was going to say, so does that include some revenue on that, maybe of some surplus or something? Okay.
It's a little bit, but I'm just saying, you'll see how departments, it'll be like an individual department financials.
I mean,
So it'll be a different format than what you're looking at, but this is where all the
A
details.
small victory, but a victory.
Absolutely. Uniforms, one of the things I guess we kind of skipped over a little bit here and went a little bit too fast was On the front page, the uniforms are up. I'm asking for personnel for our construction crews. These guys, it's a water service tech 2 and a water service tech 1. The 2 meaning he doesn't have to be supervised as much because he's trained. Our construction department, which is the installation, maintenance, repair of our water distribution system, sewer collection system, these guys handle this, and they are working very, very, very hard and long hours, and their system has grown, and that's part of the side that needs to grow with it, is to be able to start, because right now we only have 2 crews, and if we get a couple that call in sick, we're wiped out. It can wipe out a schedule now, because right now we're having to plan on Friday for the whole entire next week and pray nobody calls in sick. And if we get into the flu season, January, February, literally we cannot put services in. I have to pull from other parts of the department. I have to pull from the collection system sometimes. I have to pull from the sewer treatment plant sometimes just to get these things done. And it's when we do that, it pulls away from their work and taking care of those things. And we need it's time to expand. Right now we got 18,000, a little over 18,500 connections. If you multiply that by 2.5, that's the number that ADEM uses when they're figuring your testing how many people per connection are. You're around 45,000 folks, and you divide that by 6 guys. That's however many that take it. That's
Same amount for 10 years, pretty much.
Ma'am?
I said it's the same amount for 10 years, but anyway,
Yes, that's correct.
we gotta increase it.
Yeah, why are the 2017 actual salaries so much lower than budget?
Well, I can tell you that they have really worked on their overtime a great deal, and
It's $210,000 short.
the overtime in 2016
Mhm.
was
It's
almost
been
$600,000.
Yeah,
And we've really,
320
really worked on that.
324 versus
We're
537.
at sewer. I'm at water.
No, I'm in water.
no, not in the water, just in the sewer, right,
Okay.
right.
324 and 535.
Oh, man.
Why am I looking at
Hit the wrong button.
Jack? Good gosh.
Well, you moved it, my finger hit the wrong button.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at water service. Okay.
Which
Here's
section
water.
are you looking on, personnel?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, on the
Here.
first page.
Oh, first one.
Okay, never mind. Never mind.
Overtime in 2016 was probably very, very high due to several projects that we were trying to get completed. And we have worked very, very diligently to keep overtime to emergencies only. But it's hard. It's hard when you start getting backed up with folks coming in as fast as they're coming in wanting services. They're wanting them done. Trying to be more efficient. That's the number one thing. We just want to be more efficient with our services to the community. So where are we? Back to the
You can skip all the way to capital accounts if you want. I did notice nothing for community development this year.
It's all in general fund because that is a city expense.
Okay.
So it'll be now showed as a,
transfer.
thank you.
Okay.
In the capital, looking in the 2018 for an F-250 truck, the mileage, we've got a little over 1.6 million miles on the fleet, and they're starting to break down faster than we can keep them fixed. And there just comes a point where it's not worth, not worth keeping those trucks in the fleet. I've got one that's got over 250,000 miles and a little cube on it, doesn't even work anymore. So it's time to start replacing these trucks. Some of the stuff is smaller items like mud hog pumps for our construction crews. We have a water main break. They have the proper equipment to pump the water out of the holes with. We've been through several of these little small centrifugal pumps, and they don't hold up. Repair water well 3. That well was put in 1981. It's never been out of the ground. It is now not pumping at its rated capacity. We've tried changing the height of the bowls of the impellers to the bowls, and it's just not, but it's worn out.
Where is that?
It's out on Highway 33. The whole well itself needs to be pulled, which is the pump, column pipe, shaft, spider bearings, and the stuffing box bearings. All that has to be repaired or replaced to get it back to its original pumping capacity. We replaced one of the bigger trucks, truck 460. It's one of our heavy construction trucks for installing water, sewers, water main repairs, sewer main repairs. Those are our big trucks. And I've got in here to take from well 3 a new 12-inch water main back out to Highway 48. We have the capability of pumping about 1,700 gallons a minute at that well, but I can't get but about 1,200 out of it. The main is too small to be pushing that kind of flow down that 8-inch water line back to Fairhope Avenue.
Is that based on the repair of well 3 and the capacity, the ultimate capacity we get from that, or is that, or do we have more capacity than even 1,700 gallons?
No, that is max capacity. I can't get right now but 1,200 out of it, but I've got one well rated at 1,000 GPM and another rated at 750, so 1,750. But I can't push that down that line.
How long have we known about this, Dan? I mean, we've been
On which
banking
one?
on painting that water tower for about 2 years now. We knew that was about $1 million, and I see that on there. But then an expense is estimated to be twice that amount. I don't know that we even had on the radar.
Do you want to speak to that too, about the painting of the water tower?
No, I mean, we're working with the cell carriers, they're getting off, and there's a contractor that did not bid that project last time because of the way the substation was and everything right beside. He's gonna meet me there Tuesday, and we're gonna discuss what we can do to make sure we get competitive bids on it. And we're working on that now.
I talked to somebody about that the other day. I want to get with you on that, and Bob, I heard you might be preparing the bid specs and all too, which might be basically us, you'd be the engineer, project engineer.
Yes, that's what we're doing. We're working on that, and I've worked with the cell companies. What I'm trying to do, we were going to install a corral around the top of the tank so everybody could put their antennas on the corral. Well, and talking to some of them, their lease is based on a certain elevation that's maybe not conducive to everybody being on a corral. So now I'm looking at how to manipulate their structure so that we can paint everything, put mounting brackets on what's cut off, and then let them put mounting brackets on what they've taken off. And when they put it back, it'll just be bolted on so that if they abandon it, they'll take loose their stuff, and we'll have what we need to bolt something else to. But we won't be cutting steel off of the tower and potentially damaging the paint that we're fixing to put on it. I'm just trying to make sure that we protect the tank, and I'm going to communicate with these people about what they may need in the future. Some of these leases have the ability to add antennas. I just want to make sure if they have plans to add it in the next 25 years, we need to prepare for that now. And that's why it's kind of hell. I mean, I apologize, and I've been doing other things too, but we're trying to get this thing out where we know what we're getting, and everybody knows where they're stand in terms of
That's not a
preparing.
problem. I just wanted to ask you a little bit on that. When we talk about it offline, about the oversight of the painting and stuff like that.
Sure.
What the plans are for
Yes.
making sure they're doing it to specs,
Certainly.
and thicknesses are measured, and all those little minute details that we don't need to
Oh, certainly.
waste their time on. So Dan, back to that 12-inch main from the well 3 to Highway 48, that $2 million expense. That kind of just jumps out at me. I don't think that we've talked about that before.
We have not talked about it. We started looking at the production from last year. When we started looking at this budget, we looked at last year's production in a dry summer versus what we're doing today. And we started looking, how can we get more water without having to spend the expense of drilling a well, new building, new site, and $4 or $5 million worth of that. So we looked at how can we get more water to town.
We have talked about a new well, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we have talked about a new
Right,
well. So we were
right.
trying to figure out how can we do
Okay.
this and supplement it and not spend $4.5 million on a new well
That makes sense.
site.
So I was just wondering how we me, in my mind, I could have
That
possibly
figure-
missed
that-
this, but we have talked about a new well, and for the last several years, we've just kind of been floating that idea that we're eventually going to need a new well.
That's correct.
And we
So-
still might need one, but this is,
I think this will, because this will give us another 500 gallons a minute, is what it would give us. Now, that $2 million may not, once it's bid, may be lower than that. Now, this number is based on when we ran that water line up 13 and then eventually over to 104, that was $1,080,000. So, but that was done, from what I was told, at cost. The company that got it wanted to keep their employees busy, so that was done at cost. So I based this number off we did that one on 13 on. It could be less than that. But
And plus, we'd like to incorporate the modeling of the water system in some of this mapping upgrades that we do, so when we put that line in, we'll know, pretty much what to expect from it. And there may be options on loop lines we can lay, on other roads that exist that may not have a water line on them now, that will expand our service area and provide the same level of service when we're finished with
you
it.
know what I think would be helpful for the council as well, as we look at a lot of these big-ticket items, and we keep talking about the GIS services and the mapping, and it'd be nice to see like a demonstration of that. What does that look like? What are we paying for?
Right.
I think that'd be helpful.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be the whole sewer system or the whole
understand.
water distribution system, but a portion of it.
Okay.
I've got to replace our bulk fluoride tanks at our wells. They're aged, and it's time to change them out. We get our fluoride in 55-gallon drums, and we transfer it up into a bulk fluoride tank. So it sort of gravity feed into the building into a smaller little day tank to be measured and dispersed properly.
Okay.
A trench box. We have a need for a trench box when we have one now, but it is not the correct one we need. And this total cost, that's $10,500 is a total. That's not split. That would still be split between the departments, but that is the total cost of it. So it would be split 3 ways,
Okay.
the 10.5. We're in need of a new ground penetrating radar. The one we have in the last year has been down for repairs 3 times. And what it is, we have to send it on an emergency to, I think it's North Carolina, to be repaired. And that is our lifeline for locating utilities. A portable SCB, a self-contained breathing apparatus for our water operators. If they pull up to the well and chlorine's leaking, they'll have this portable unit in there with them. We've had one in the past, but it's out of its service life. Once they get it, they go through the fire department training on the SCBA. So they're taught how to properly don and doff these masks. And of course, then you see the painting of the water tower that's in there.
Okay.
Any questions on the water?
Any questions, council? Questions, Mayor?
That's good.
Thank you. Let's talk about a sewer a little bit here. This one's a little more difficult. As far as the revenues, there again, we're projecting a slight increase in the sewer charge, and also based on some of those subdivisions that are upcoming developments that we're seeing.
Sewage charges are down just because water usage is down, once again, probably attributed to a very, very wet summer, correct?
Yeah, when the water usage go down, they go hand in hand.
Right.
And this year in the sewer, wanting to convert a position in our collection to an electrician. He is trained by the Department of Navy and works for us. He's a great electrician, and I'd like to convert his job that he's doing over to what an electrician's pay would be. Not asking for any increase in personnel, just changing his title, basically, and is what we're doing.
Okay.
Training school, some of the same schools that we talked about in the water, which was Alabama Rural Water, WEF and any miscellaneous schools for our operators. There again, how important it is to keep our operators trained and up to date on the latest regulations and things that EPA or ADEM is coming down with. Professional services for 2018, I took it down a little bit. I don't know of anything, but I left it in there for a little in case we had something we needed to call a consultant on. We had something already budgeted in there. Computer expense, Jeff had put in there a laptop, but we need to renew our, what's called our Win 911 or SCADA alarm for our plant. That's a license we have to renew once a year. And then all the other mapping support services that IT had put in there.
We're not going to question any of those. Go through those.
All right. Let's jump over to the maintenance of the buildings. 50360. Down at the treatment plant, one of the blower buildings that we have, it was one of the original buildings. The wall is starting to pull away as the same way as the wall did on this building here. Lance has looked at it, and we need to get that building repaired. And then we got several lift station buildings, odds and ends, that we need to repair throughout the system. Boards, facial boards, fix some concrete slabs. That's why you see those in there.
You know, let me make sure it's not in there. Hang on, let me just
Okay.
peek at capital real quick. Well, it may be in lift station upgrades, I'm not sure. You have portable generators. I was just thinking about generators, and, you know, it's, one thing that worries me, and this is across the board in all of these, in every one of these budget presentations, is that we're talking about some of this minutia when we just take a stab at our revenues, and they might be off by $400,000 or $500,000, and then we're, you know, talking about 10 or 20 here and there, and you know, we need to be talking about some, you know, especially with these lift stations, you know, incorporating backup generators as often as we can. I mean, we got 60-something lift stations, and, you know, even if we bought 5 a year, we'd be 12 years, and by the time 12 years is up, those first ones bought will probably have to be replaced. We need to be replacing.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not sure what
would-
the cost of them are, 20,000 apiece, 30,000?
Probably. I wouldn't be an
No, they're
advocate
more
for
than that.
fixed generators at each lift station. That's just
You think the
going-
portable generator's the way to go?
Certainly.
Okay.
yeah. You maintain 3 or 4 portable generators versus 50 or so.
So that's covered in the capital expense. I saw
We
2
do
portable
have some,
generators.
yeah, we do have,
Okay.
and plus sometimes it's the electric system that you got to work on, so you want to have a dry prime pump that you can bypass the entire electric and pump system of the lift station and still move the water.
37.5 each, that makes sense.
We'll get to that in a second. We'll show you something.
Okay. I just want to
The
make sure we
supporting
had that covered.
documentation.
I want to
Sent
make
it
sure we
to
had
you
that
the other
covered.
day. Maintenance of the plant, that not only includes the sewage treatment plant, it includes anything in the lift stations, from pumps, rotating assemblies, breakers, anything that goes on out in the field comes out of that budget. And pretty much I took last year's and used the same figure this year for this upcoming budget. Telephone, Jeff put, you know, IT director put those there. Dues and memberships is Alabama Rural Water. Gas and oil, same thing we did last year. Maintenance of our vehicle and equipment's up a little bit due to our sewer machine. We need to invest a little money in our sewer machine. The dash needs to be replaced, and it's gotten to the point it's dry rot. Some of the stuff's come loose. I need to do some regular maintenance, regular maintenance out in some of the vehicles and equipment we need to do out there. The sewer machine, I just got a quote on just on the outs of it. Between the dash and that, it's about $8,000 worth of maintenance we need to do on that. We paid, I think it was right at $200,000 for that machine when we bought it. It's been well worth its weight in gold, but we need to do some more maintenance on it, so a few more years we can get out of it before we have to buy another one. Uniforms, pretty much a little bit over in that. We've added a couple people in the collection system, and hopefully we'll have somebody here that's filling a vacancy in the sewer treatment plant here soon, so they'll take care of those uniforms for those individuals. Chemicals and testing stayed pretty much the same. I want to talk about the capital next. All right. Had in there for another F-250 truck on the sewer side. Sewer line rehab, we raised what we did from this past budget to this one. We need to try to do more if we can in our sewer line rehab and manhole rehab.
What was spent this year?
The cured in place pipe.
Cured in place pipe.
liner.
Right, but what amount?
360 something thousand we spent on that. Now, we got in there our sewer bypass pump. I put one in the budget this year, but times 3, one for in the next budget and the budget after that. And I want to show y'all something during a rain event we had. At a very brand new subdivision. This is why we want bypass pumps. That is 3 transformer banks that are washed down in. The only thing that's holding them up is actual wires going into transformer.
That was at Firethorn, I think, phase 3.
Yes, it was over in Firethorn. Washed the hill away and washed the transformers. The only thing holding them up there from falling over into the detention pond is the actual primary wires themselves. When it did, it took that lift station offline. Fortunately, we have one backup generator and those pumps that it would carry at that station. And then somebody had to go out every so often, crank the generator, turn it on, pump it down until EMC could get back out there. Well, first the developer had to come back in and rebuild that whole embankment, get it back. Then Bowen EMC had to come back in and then reset those transformers in there. Well, these bypass pumps, you can set them up in such a way that they'll crank themselves and turn themselves back off when it's not down. And they're what's called a quiet pack. They're very, very quiet. Our generator is very, very loud. Thank goodness there wasn't a lot of folks around in this area living right now.
But that, that's not even a natural, like the natural drainage into that retention pond there.
What caused a lot of
Right
those, there were
through
sock pipes.
the transformers.
Were in all of the drain inlets. And we had such a tremendous amount of rain in a short period of time. It blew that out, run across the road and hit it and run down that hill, and then it started cutting that and washed all that loose soil, and it did. The transformers fell.
Okay, so it was really up, I'm not seeing what's up.
Yeah, what you can't see is.
What's above that then?
Yeah, this is actual sidewalk here, and the road is here, and there's an above here. So that the water got going pretty good, but I thought y'all'd like to see that, to see what we're dealing with out there.
Like they need some more engineering.
Part of our sewer upgrades I had put in there to upgrade the Fells lift station, but I think that's being addressed in the Goodwood Mills and Kaywood report. So, the upgrade to the lift station upgrades, we probably need to hold off on those until we actually see that report and it's presented to the council, and then make decisions based off that report.
And the report is going to be way different than this.
Okay. Okay.
It's a lot of needs.
We got a sewer line that we need to repair over on Bayview, that runs, it's about a 300-foot run that we need to get. It's about 10 foot deep, and it's going to wind up tearing the road up. There's a section there at Bayview that in 1979, when that blew out over there, they did not close for whatever reason, they didn't put the water line back across there. So that's all tore up, I was going to take the opportunity to close that line back up. And so it's now loop fed again through. We don't have a dead end. That's right there off of Fairhope Avenue. I guess it used to be old Pontiac dealership. I believe it's set right there at that vacant. I think it's now some apartments or something that's supposed to be built right there. That water line dead ends before it gets right to the gully right there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just on the other side of the gully, there in about 300 foot or so, or 200 foot or so, that sewer line has got to be repaired through there. We have a sewer pilot study on our odor control. We spend a tremendous amount of money during the year on odor control. Well, they make it's a huge canister that will help filter the air. If we can get that installed, we might be able to reduce our chemical feed and significantly reduce that budget on our chemicals. So we'd like to try to do that study and see how it would work. And if so, and it's successful, then we can certainly reduce our chemical feed. Odor loggers, we need those instead of having somebody do them for them. I'd like to do it myself, or my guys do it themselves. So if we have a complaint, we go drop the odor logger in, it'll monitor around the clock, and you come back, hook it to the laptop, and it'll tell you exactly what's going on. So help you try to identify, do you have a problem? What do you need to do to try to take care of it? And we're in desperate need of another sewer camera. The camera we have currently, we bought in 1999. It's outdated. The cameras we have today, you can actually locate the heads on them. It's a small push camera that we can use. Anything above that, and we will, call somebody out of Mobile like SIS to come camera that. Those cameras run $100,000+. So I said, well, we don't use them that often, so I would rather have our own in-house camera. If we need anything above that, we can certainly contract that out and have that done and save some money.
Yeah, and one thing we want to do with the camera, and we just finished that Dogwood, Nichols, and Fairland sewer system lining project, and that last rain event, we had some pretty significant overflow there. And so we're a little bit surprised that, the lining systems weren't quite as rock solid as we thought they were going to be. So now what we're looking to do is go through that subdivision with smoke testing and with this camera and look and see where we have other issues, breaches in the system besides the main collection line. And part of all that, if we determine that part of this whole sewer rehab evaluation requires some upfront people looking and evaluating, and being able to get the low-hanging fruit so that we can try to get the most out of our money on the front end of this whole capital improvement project. We may be looking at a crew that's dedicated to doing that, and they can go out. Each rain event, you'll find different little places that you'll realize there's more water coming through here than there used to be. I can't tell you the number of people that call it subdivisions in different places that talk about, whether it be stormwater or sewer. It's time to have somebody or a crew that's available to evaluate those issues, and if we can do them in-house, great. If not, we need to be able to. With the contract we did this year is one of those contracts that you can renew for the next 2 years, and when we do that, this crew I'm describing would be the ones that would develop the work orders that would take the lining contract and get the worst parts of the system lined first. And I think that's important that we start looking at how to, and then emergency, when Dan talks about people being sick and when we go from two crews to one, we'll have some backup for that. But the emergency response capability during these times when we have extreme rain events and system inundation, we can have people checking things so that when we get past the event and we start looking at, well, where were the problems, and we can better focus on where to look at where to find issues that we can correct. So another crew, I don't want to jump into it, just dive in head first, but I think we do need to be sure that we can benefit from it and that it's time to do that. And I think exploring this Tatumville Gully where we had this problem, I think that'll give us an idea about what we should be looking for, what kind of people we need to hire to do that, and we'll have a direction to take in terms of evaluating it.
Let me say thank y'all for the opportunity, Mayor, Council, to sit here and try to explain it, because it's very, very important. It's important to me. It's important to the staff to at least be heard. And I heard Jack say, if you don't ask it, you're not going to get it. So
Yeah, we appreciate
we're
it.
asking-
I'm asking.
I think it's important too, because they will, I mean, y'all put together, but this worksheet's really comprehensive. Thank you,
Yep,
Jill.
thank you.
I mean, it really is a lot more detail, and we can really see the trends, and, you know, it's the way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. We got through 4 in under 2 hours, but if you take sewer and water, which it should be, so, all right, next. We have how many more?
Just, rec and adult rec,
Rec and adult rec. Is that 1 or 2?
just two.
Just a couple hours worth.
Thank you. I'm taking the first one, so.
All right, personnel. The big thing is lifeguards. It's getting harder and harder to find get the best people at $8.28 an hour. So, you know, we're asking to increase the lifeguards to $10 an hour. There's only half a dozen or so that work throughout the winter, but in the summer months, we go up to 25 to 30 lifeguards to, you know, rotate a staff of 6 or 7 throughout the pool. So that's the only thing I'm really looking at for the, as far as the pool. It's just an increase in pay from $8.28 to $10. And then over at the tennis courts, we're requesting either 1 full-time person or 2 part-time to cover the hours that it's going to take to take care of those clay courts and make sure that they're manned 7 days a week. That's a lot of hours to cover.
Are we getting any of the players to help maintain the courts? You know, remember when we bought them, they said, oh, the players will go out there and rake them and do this and that, and we kind of scoffed at that. We were told, oh, no, they'll help maintain them. You won't have to have all this staff.
Good intentions, I think, but, you know, when it comes down to it, now they feel that they're having to pay for the use of the courts. So, you know, if they're having to pay, you know, why would they?
They still think the price is extremely cheap, by the way. out
The
there. I've
price
had
is-
people tell me that they are just shocked at how cheap it is. And they're very happy. They love the courts.
The court's
Love
in
the
great
courts.
shape. The pro that we hired, I could not be happier.
Good.
You know, I just pictured, you know, this maintenance nightmare, but, you know, we've been over there a few times to help him with some plumbing issues, minor plumbing issues, but he maintains those courts. They're
He
ready
is,
to
but
play.
the pro can maintain them. They're doing a good job. It's just so many hours that one person can work and so much play, right?
Yeah, because you have to, someone has to be there when those courts
Right.
are, someone has to be there during the hours, because if you get a little shower like we just had, if someone's not there and people go out there and you know, attempt to play on them, you know, then tomorrow would be a nightmare trying to fix them back up. So, I mean, they have to be locked up at the end of the hours. You can't, it's not like the asphalt courts.
We
next
keep
door.
people off of them when it's,
We keep people off,
Daily.
yeah, and so we have to have staff there, and it's, you know, minimal staff, but I
Sure.
still, to cover all the hours.
Sure.
With the new lights coming in, 1 full-time would be great, but, you know, I would take 2 part-times. Okay. Just go right on down through all that. General supplies, same as last year. You know, we're covering up, taking care of the tennis court expenses out of that, you know, plus all the new expenses at the new soccer complex.
how long have those courts been open now, Tom?
They opened in June of last year.
Okay, so we've got pretty much a year of data on there, so
Yeah.
we did pretty good on budgeting the,
Yes, we did, yeah.
the
extra
general supplies and all,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and then, you know, you allowed us to
Because
purchase.
that was a shot in the dark with those new
It
courts
was.
things, so, okay.
You allowed us last year to purchase the equipment we need to maintain them properly, and we just finished a little maintenance barn out there, which is really gonna help, so. We keep the gator there and all the clay and other tools. You know, just a couple things, memberships, dues. I went up, and I'm asking for some more money on uniforms, which, doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. Because, back to the lifeguards at $8.28 an hour right now, they have to pay for their own certification through the Red Cross, and they have to buy their own swimsuits. We require red swimsuits. It just never set right with me, and I'm going to continue to ask until we can, purchase 2 swimsuits per lifeguard to get them through the year. I feel it's right. And then, also, we've never really clothed the rec center and tennis employees, so that's why I'm doubling the amount that I've got budgeted now, and bring it up to $4,500. Try to have everybody looking uniform. The purchase vehicles and equipment. I try to buy a new zero-turn. I bought one last year, and I just try to buy a new zero-turn mower once a year, keep that cost down, and another paint machine, because we do use those quite a bit. Those are kind of minor things. The big thing on this is the fairway mowers. They obviously they run just over $50,000 a piece, and I'm in desperate need. The older ones in my fleet, the oldest one is an 07. It's got over 2,000 hours on it. Then I inherited 2 from the golf course and bought out of their lease. I believe it was 2 years ago, and so they were well worn at the time, but I was asked to buy that lease out and see if I couldn't get a couple years out of them, and we have, and they're still running, but they're at 1,600 hours. They've got a lot of time on them. You have to start having hydraulic issues and things like that. So the golf course always leases. They always have a big lease package where they lease all their mowers, and we've done that on a single basis, twice, but so we're looking at at a cost of $220,000 to replace 4 of those mowers, or a cost of $57,000 a year.
That's an or.
That's for a 3-year lease. Which,
The lease doesn't look too bad. I mean, that's assuming, they would have to last 12 years to equal, almost 12 years to equal the lease price.
We get a lot of mileage out of our equipment. I mean, we have
You think they
pretty
last
good-
12 years, though?
12 years is pushing it on
Yeah,
the
the
hydraulics.
leases, and you get newer, and you get newer equipment
You
after
get
3
new
years.
equipment after 3 years, and
Yeah.
you get the good out of it that's still decent enough to, to either buy out or just turn back in. It's worked for the golf course for a long time, and those reel mowers are a pretty integral part of keeping those sports fields, the way we do. Good mowing practices is everything, so I'm asking you to consider one or the other there.
What does the 382 figure include? The 220 or the 57, or is it just a total? Should that be reduced by one or the other? Jill, do you know?
That's a total, that's a total.
So that 382 includes the 220 and 57?
Yes.
So we know it's at least 57 less than that?
Yes.
Okay. Tom, while I'm thinking about it, just as a side note, and Jill, you might can work on this with all your spare time, I know you have. I am kidding. I'd like to, and Mayor, you may have actually had this done. Where did Mayor go? I looked over, she's gone. Mayor, where'd you go? I think she may have asked you to do this recently. Jill, I was in a meeting with Sherry Lee and Wayne yesterday, and this was brought up, the value that we provide the Baldwin County school system with labor and the equipment and the use of fields. I'd really like, 4 years ago, we had about a number of, there was about $550,000 in kind a year. And I think this council deserves to see updated numbers on where we are with that. I mean, we pump a tremendous amount of money into, there are facilities, but they're being used by Baldwin County Board of Education. I'm going to tell you, as a son of a high school football coach, my dad mowed the field. We didn't have the city of Ancleve mow the field. And coaches did it. And coaches washed clothes and coaches swept. And nowadays, we're paying city employees And I'm not trying to put you out of a job,
I understand.
but I mean, when you look at these budgets, I just, and I know that they are appreciative of it, but there comes a time when we need to remind them that they need to be appreciative of it.
It's been probably 3 or 4 years ago, we sat down over a few months' time and looked at everything we were doing and broke down our maintenance, our employee cost and supply cost, and broke it all down. And I didn't bring that with me tonight, but I can update that and get it to you. And it was more than a third of our budget, I think, that we do for school sports.
Exactly.
The rest is youth sports, but when you.
There was a time we charged them for utilities, and somewhere along the way, years ago, that went by the wayside. We don't charge them for utilities, we give that away. And, I think it's time for them to give us something. Maybe a school downtown or something like that, maybe.
What all was done, but I remember back in January and February of just this prior year, we worked on a lot of the school, services and expenditures and stuff like that, that the value of everything that we provide to the schools. In fact, I believe I have that laying on my desk.
Okay.
Yeah, if you'd like to see it.
Would you guys like to see it?
I can update mine and send
Sure,
it to you what
that'd be great.
we spend.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Just put it in our boxes.
Okay.
Just when you get to it. We don't have to have it tomorrow. or next
Understood.
week. I mean, I know you're busy with this.
Moving on down the line, after that, a couple things we'd really like to have to keep the fields in excellent shape. We want to keep moving forward with, and it's not new technology, it's just better technology than what we've got, what we're operating with. And it's an aerator for about $9,000 and a flail mower, which we'd use on baseball fields to maintain the lips where the dirt meets the grass. Asking for, we haven't had a new pickup truck. Last new one we bought, I think, was 13. And just with the new soccer complex and driving all the way down to Barnwell and everything, sometimes we run out of trucks. So I'm looking at just a regular cab, half-ton pickup truck at 18. And then this year, we just recently spent $60-some thousand budgeted items for upgrading some fitness equipment at the rec center, and that's going to be delivered soon. But we're asking in this coming year's budget for another $55,000 to upgrade some more of the equipment, and we basically just replaced over a third of the equipment.
You spent a lot less than what's budgeted, I noticed that.
We did, yeah. We
Yeah.
budgeted 87. We come in at 60, I think.
Yeah, yours
So
considerably less.
So yeah, we'd like to update some more of that equipment because it's been there since '09. And then get down into capital improvements. Just again, it's not huge amounts of money, but a $6,000 concrete standalone wall and half a tennis court. Because right now we've got a backboard on one of the courts. So if somebody wants to go out there and play tennis by themselves, they're taking up a whole court. So this would be a standalone concrete wall that sets outside the existing courts. I had in the budget last year of $7,000 to close in the maintenance shop at Founders Park. But right now I've got mowers that are going back and forth from Founders Park to Manly, having to, either pile in a pickup truck and come back and punch out for lunch, get back in the pickup truck and go back over to Manly, and then the mowers at the end of the day are coming back and forth. And just, we've timed this a couple times, and you're at about 16 minutes to get on a mower, leave Founders shop, and drive over to the fields at Manly. It's 16 minutes, twice a day with two mowers. It eats up a lot of man hours. So what I'm asking to do is, I haven't spent that $7,000, but just below that is a maintenance barn. I could get a no frills, 2 overhead doors, 1 walk-through door, 40 by 40 barn, steel building for about $30,000. If the city, we all got together and formed up and poured the concrete slab, that would be an extra $2,500 in materials. But so we're asking for $30,000 for a barn over there. It would just help alleviate a lot of manpower loss going back and forth, and a lot of wear and tear on these.
How big of a barn did you say?
40 by 40. I got a couple quotes from from the local steel building builders, such as Kimco. But it's you've got a $50,000 lawnmower going back and forth from park to park twice a day at minimum, and then the school traffic is always something in the morning. You rush over there and beat it and get over there prior to, or you have to wait till afterwards, which there's 15, 20, 30 minutes worth of maintenance to do on these mowers just about every day to keep them beefed up and adjusted. Moving on down from there, the stadium track resurface. We've over the years, anytime the track would get in bad shape, they would pay to have another 1.5 inches, 2 inches of asphalt put on it. And so over the years, it's gotten built up so much that now we have a drainage problem. And in pictures from the 80s, you can see that the concrete curb that's up against the field itself is about that far above the asphalt track. But over the years, now the asphalt track's higher than that curb. Water goes to run off, I have drainage problems. So at $65,000, they would come in, mill it down twice, and go down a total of about 5 inches, which would get us back below where we need to be, and come back in with a fresh 1.5 inches of asphalt. And then what the asphalt guys are telling me, what the mistake that's been made over the years is, we just come in and resurface it and add more to it every year. When they said every 3 to 4 years, you put that black coat sealer on, like you see some grocery store parking lots or restaurants, put that black sealer on it every 3 or 4 years, and it'll maintain the track.
Yeah, but you can't run on it. I mean, do we want it to be a running track, or do we want it to be just something that the football team drives their gator around and puts their Gatorade on during the football field? I mean, during a football game, because you don't want to run on the
I can't
sealer.
I can't host high school meets.
Right, there's not enough lanes. It's got to be, 8 lanes minimum?
It's got to be 2 more lanes, and because of the way the drainage is set up, it would be major, to do that.
So why are we doing it then?
I hold 2 events that.
Oh, we have the Special Olympics?
Special Olympics, which is, very special to us, and I host 1 or 2 middle school track meets, which they can use that asphalt track.
I would highly advise no sealing on there if they're going to be running.
Well, it's not a slick sealing. I mean, it's what you see that they do in parking lots. All it does is seal that aggregate in there and make the track last longer, where it won't start splitting and cracking.
Does that cost, you said mill twice and add 1.5 inches of new? Is that including new striping?
We can stripe it.
We stripe it?
We stripe it. We striped it before.
Okay.
We do that every once in a while.
You got all this.
We got all the machines, and it's just like, Ricky going downtown and
set up the blocks for the 400 meters and the 200 meters
we
and
don't
the
have
100
the blocks
meters.
or anything like that. They don't use that in middle school.
They don't have,
Hurdles or nothing.
they don't have zones for handoffs or anything like that?
They have those zones. Yeah, they're all there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's something I've been asking for a number of years, and my big thing is, because we're grass people, it's a drainage issue as much as aesthetic. It looks terrible.
I'd like to see Baldwin County Board of Education build a brand new track somewhere for high school. 8 lanes.
8 lanes. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I get people, for all the work that we do for soccer and all the work that we do for baseball, football, soccer, you name it, people that have kids in high school that run track.
They want to know why we don't have a track.
They want it too. They do.
I don't doubt it. Don't doubt it. There was a control system for the AC system at the rec center, about $4,500 in there. Replacing the plumbing at Founders Park restrooms, when that restroom was built in 98, 99, there's been issues ever since then with the plumbing, just not having enough flow. And I think it's, 1/2-inch piping in the walls and going to the, you can turn on a sink and flush a toilet and watch the sink slow up. I mean, it's that bad. And, so as, public restrooms, I need more flow, and I've brought Lance into it and talked to a plumber, and we could probably do it all the way from the main line into the building, larger water service going into the building, and redo all that inside for somewhere around south of $20,000. That was a high estimate. Back to the stadium. ADA platforms and ramps. The Baldwin County Board of Education went around a few years ago and redid the older stadiums and brought everything up to standards where it should be. And they didn't include us because it's not on their property. And, the same, I got a quote from the same company that did theirs. And that's at $160,000.
It's actually not a bad price for it.
It's not a bad price. That's all in, them doing all the work. That's turnkey. And then there's been some talk over the last few years about press boxes. So there's companies out there that build prefab stadium press boxes. One route, if we're still in the mindset to do something about the press boxes there, you could build an 8-foot by 54-foot pre-built, installed. The only thing we would do is bore the holes and pour the concrete with the bolts in it, and they would come and erect it from there up. All the steel and everything, they all
We
in.
would put those on the ground, and then we put structure from the ground all the way up?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we would just bore the hole, set the bolts, pour the concrete to their specifications. The 8-foot by 54-foot would be more than just slightly more than what we need to host visitors,
Are you thinking,
teams.
is this 8 by 54, are you envision that as the visitor side?
No, I'm envisioning that as taking down the one that's there on the home side and putting it there and not putting anything on the visitor side. And if you wanted to go the other way, those 8-foot by 18 press boxes, they're about $42,000 a piece, and it's the same thing. It's, we would bore the holes and set, the bolts and pour the concrete, and they would come and put structure up from there.
When did we get the idea that we need to replace and there's a lot of pressure, I'm in that booth a lot. There's a lot of pressure to replace. When did we get the idea that we need to replace the home side press box? There was a talk about putting in a visitor side.
There was talk
And
of
then
that.
when all of a sudden, are we letting boosters tell us that we need a new one on the home side because I don't
No,
like the
sir.
way it looks, or
No,
what?
sir. But I can just imagine if I put a brand-new press box over on the visitor side, what the hometown crowd's going to say.
Well, the vision was to put one probably about 30 feet by 8 foot over there, just so they can have their coaches over there, and you don't get the coaches yin and yang and
Yep.
during the ball games, and then the rise of media, the visitors, especially Foley, comes to mind
Sure.
a lot. They bring their press, and they need
Yep.
room, and the idea was to have a place for the visitors' press, because you get some regional television coverage.
Yep.
And then they come in and say they own the rights. I still don't quite understand how they, have the rights to our stadium, and they kick out our people, and then they kick out the visitors' people, and pretty soon you got some people that are used to broadcasting games, and they don't have anywhere to go. So I think in last year's, maybe it wasn't in this 2017 budget. In the 2016 budget, we had money in there for a press box. It never got built. Year before, we had money in there for a press box. It never got built. And now I'm seeing a proposal for a home side press box, and I mean, it could be better. I mean, it's not the greatest press box in the world, but it's not the worst either. And if you got the visitors on the other side, there'd be plenty of room in the home field press
Yes, there
box.
would. Yes, there would, because you'd have a whole empty room upstairs that, you could probably, put the home coaches together in 2 rooms, take
Yeah.
the doorway out, and you'd, still have a room for the scorekeeper and officials upstairs. You're right. I was throwing these out as options, for
I
discussion.
know. Well, I'm getting the same pressure, and I get the same pressure. The same people that want this stuff push it on you, they push it on me.
They call me and I tell them to call Jack.
I know that press box was, it was built some years ago. I mean, I'm going to say in 01, 02, something like that, it was built, and it's, when you're standing upstairs, and somebody comes walking up those steps, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And it's bolted to the concrete slabs, and, you know, like I said, there's nothing, it may last for years and years. I'm throwing these out as
I'm
suggestions.
also trying to
because-
educate the council members on what kind of
Yeah.
the history of that is. I mean,
Yeah.
Robert has probably spent a lot of time there with his son, daughter, playing ball. Jay hadn't gotten there yet, but he will be there.
He will be there. And then the one last thing it's a fairly big item at $17,000 is the, you know, technology's changed since we built that pool, and there's a new system that electronically meters the sanitation levels and will open up the dispenser and keep the sanitation levels exactly where they should be without it being done on a manual basis, with us going back in there, you know, numerous times a day and checking and making sure that that the bromine dispenser stays at the level that it should be, and it's got the proper flow through it and everything. This is all done electronically now. It's just newer technology than what we had when we built the pool, and you're about $17,000. They also, that includes a new electric motor, which ours runs. It's a big 15-horse electric motor, runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they would install a motor that has 3 speeds, because during non-use times, they don't believe that the filtering system and the sanitation system needs to run wide open like it does now, but that's just the way ours was designed for, you know, like I said, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That pump is pumping 900 gallons a minute through those filters and through the sanitation. And then lastly, you know, all this hinging upon what that pool building repair is going to cost us. And I know that Mr. Peterson and Lance and engineers have been working on that, and we continue to work on it and haven't got a firm cost yet.
So, I know that there's very little income there. I only see expenses here, but, you know, do the memberships, pool memberships, memberships, they supposed to show up as income in this department, or?
They show, there is line items for them, but they weren't in the worksheet.
Yeah, they're all in, they're really not on the worksheet, they're in the budget, but they're on the revenue side where all the general fund revenues are reported together. But I think that's what the mayor was saying. She wants to kind of separate the revenues and the expenses by department this year, just as a presentation point, not necessarily change anything we do in-house, but just say the recreation, you'll have revenues and then you'll have expenses to kind of see what kind of revenue they're bringing in.
Well, that's right, but since it's not on here, so I didn't know how to
No.
I didn't know how to look at it. Okay. But it'll be broken down in the general fund revenues, okay?
It's on our monthly statements that come out.
Yeah, I see them on there, yeah. Questions for Tom?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
No. Thank you, Tom. Jim, you up? You have been mighty patient there. You haven't even changed your expression.
This is it. So, am I next? Yeah, 5 minutes. All right.
It's either that or take me to dinner.
We can do both.
No.
Hello, council. Thank you for seeing me tonight.
You can't really talk about adult rec without talking about the Nick Center and the Civic Center, because they all fall
Sure.
under.
Okay.
adult
Well, I wasn't trying
rec.
to keep anybody out, but,
And I think they had asked Lance for like the HVA, there's a good bit of HVAC stuff that,
okay.
And these are going to be our capital improvement expense projects, actually. That first sheet that I just handed out, that is what Jill sent over. Been with Adult Rec for about 4.5 years, and how the budget worked, we would tell our supervisor, we need this, this, and this, and this, and send her the list, and that was the end of it. So this is a kind of a new situation now, and looking forward to embracing it and going forward with the way the budgets are supposed to operate. Right behind that spreadsheet I gave you, I want you to look at this. This is a sort of a snapshot by priority on how I see the Nick Center improving, if you will. So again, by priority, the air conditioning system is 20 years old, in terrible condition. And the reason for us being at the Nick Center is to provide a safe and pleasant environment for our senior citizens. Right now, we have about 1,200 members. They are wonderful. They're great people. They thoroughly enjoy the facility. We do a lot of things for them, and it's a real jewel for the city of Fairhope to have the Nick Center. So the air conditioning obviously is the utmost important, especially in June, July, August, and September, and so forth. I've asked Lance to come along with me to sort of explain the grave situation of our air conditioning system, and he can do it much better than I can. And so Lance, if you'll talk to them about that, I would appreciate it.
There's 5 units at the Nick Center. We have a fresh air unit, which consists of 50 tons. That unit, the compressors are cut out of it and have been since I've been here. We have a ballroom unit, which consists of 30 tons. There's 2 15-ton circuits in it. We're running on 15 tons of air. That's it. The other compressors been cut out of it at some point prior to my being employed. The fresh air unit is very important. It feeds all the other 4 air handlers that are there. It's the lungs of the system. So that being said, right now, at this point, the controls have been disabled in the Nick Center. We've gone back to residential thermostats at some point and rewired it with just residential thermostats hung on the wall and took the logic and symmetry out of the engineered system. This was a very good system at one point. Some Gorham built the duct on it, and I can't remember, a train put the equipment in. But it all relies on one another. Yesterday, we found some wiring issues that really concern me. If y'all want to look further into it, y'all can go down there and look at it one day. I'm just saying be prepared. I'm not saying that's what it's going to cost. What I suggest doing is hiring a train or someone to come in, go through this, and maybe, I doubt very seriously they're going to use the same equipment, but there's a possibility we can keep the air handlers and put a new condensing unit on the fresh air and do some duct work. The fire dampeners right now, where that fresh air unit was disabled, of course, when they killed the power to it, the fire dampeners shut. They're corroded and rusted in place, so they're completely shut off. So I don't want to go in too much and elaborate on it too much, but if I would love for y'all to come down and walk through it with me.
How does it stay cool at all in there? It doesn't?
Baling wire and duct tape. I mean, it does okay. I've got Cody climbing all over the building at least once a week, fixing this, adjusting that, running a wire here.
You know, we can maintain it. Yesterday, for example, there was a 125 amp breaker on number 4 wire going outside. It shorted out, and it could have been bad because it should have at least been number 2 wire in there. And like I said, I don't want to get all into it. Right now, on the ballroom itself, if we have a big function at night, I've spent on many a night at the Nick Center trying to just hoping and praying that I can keep it going. You know, like I said, we only have, there's 2 compressors on the ballroom unit. Well, that ballroom unit actually relies on that fresh air unit to help it put the air in that ballroom. Well, it's out of the picture. So right now, the ballroom unit is running on 1 circuit, which is 15 tons, and it's looking for that air coming from the fresh air unit. It's not getting that. So it's sucking through the little building returns. So in return, it's like you breathing through a straw. And what happens then is the head pressure, the suction pressure drops down, and we slow the compressors back. We put 6 compressors in those units. Funny thing is there's low ambient controls on all the units outside. When I walked up to them the first time, it takes a while to get through these buildings. And it's like, why in the world do we have low ambient controls on these units out here? It don't make sense. Sometimes you see a low ambient controls in a cold climate or a control room where you have cold weather, or you may have to run during cold weather. Well, that being said, the fresh air not running, those units are trying to return through a little bitty return and don't have that fresh air pumping into it, which is required. And that's why they have the low ambient controls on, is to try to keep the head pressure up. They slow the fans down, trying to keep the head pressure up where it won't freeze up. So I'm not saying that it'll cost us that, but I'm definitely saying that we need to be prepared for it.
Okay.
One of the things that Lance had mentioned to me is getting a train expert out there. But I've heard that it's very difficult to get them out there. They won't even
We'll
come near us.
pay them to come do a survey.
Right, it'll be an expense there, so we'll have to find out exactly what that expense is, but if they won't return our calls, it's kind of difficult to do that. Has to be a train expert, somebody, not necessarily.
If we're going to try to reuse this equipment, it is a sole proprietorship. The train has so.
Right.
If this original equipment 20 years old,
Yes, I agree.
pull it and move on.
Right. That's what we're going to do.
All right.
Moving down in terms of priority, I'm talking with Sherry Lee, I really need to move one of my part-time people to full-time at a cost of about $16,000 more a year. In order to run the Nick Center properly, it's going to take the business end and the things that I do, plus the entertainment end of the Nick Center, and with that other full-time person working in conjunction with me, there'll be a chemistry there that is very similar to what Donnie and I had when we were at the museum. So I'm asking if we would consider moving a part-time person to full-time. So as far as personnel, that's the only issue I have at this point. In terms of other capital improvements, priority-wise, we want to make the Nick Center really look wonderful. The landscaping in front of the Nick Center parking lot is pretty ragged. I talked to Paul Merchant, and he said for about $1,500, he'll provide labor and put brand new shrubbery all across there. As you probably know, December 3rd is going to be the 20th anniversary of the Nick Center, and we're going to have a fairly large celebration for that, and so we really are going to be sprucing up the exterior and the interior. The exterior painting was on last year's budget, and I am going to complete that by the end of September of this year. I've got quotes in, and we'll probably have that done by probably the first week in September. That was on last year's budget. Couple of things that were on last year's budget that didn't get taken care of were carpeting, some additional chairs, and repair or replacement of some of the windows and doors. We have done about $6,000 of the $10,000 in the door replacement, so we've got about $4,000 left that I would like to move over to 2018 to finish those repairs. That $6,000 is a number that I got from Jill. She said we probably got invoices for about $6,000 of the 10. The other issue is the carpeting. My predecessors, Sherry and Sarah, they did a good job of sort of staying ahead of the curve in terms of improvements. So, they tried to sort of keep things going all along. So just replacing one section of the Nick Center carpet at a time seems to be an easier way to do that. So the card room, which gets used probably, it's the most used room in the Nick Center, is the carpet that really needs to be replaced. We have bridge players in there pretty much 5 days a week, and it's full most of the time. So we've got an estimate of $10,000 to replace that carpet. We need 50 more chairs to make all 300 chairs match. We've got about 250 with a certain back height, and we need another 50 more to be able to accommodate these large weddings and receptions with chairs that all look alike. Then the doors and awnings, we've already talked about that. The front office cabinetry is the last thing on my capital improvements. It's been there for about 20 years. It's very old, it's very dated. Hinges are coming apart. Some of the drawers work, some of the drawers do not. And so for $8,000, we can get some new front office cabinetry for the office there. And that's where everybody comes in. That's what they see. They want to see something that looks nice.
The first line under the purchase of vehicles and equipment, the AC unit for the Civic Center at $40,000, is that eliminated if you go down and do the?
AC's on the Nick Center.
I know.
Okay.
That's carried over from.
I'm sorry, Civic Center. Never mind, I misread that. Never mind. I'll be all right. We've been here a while.
Been a long night.
Yeah.
I understand.
Never mind. Okay.
Then Shirley Lee asked that we talk about raising our fees this year. We are by far probably 30-40% cheaper than anybody else providing a venue like we have. So the proposed increase to our venue would be $785 for the ballroom from $485. It's about a 60% increase. It's going to generate another $10,000 a year in revenue. Our total revenue right now is about $60,000. Comes from memberships, comes from ballroom rentals, group memberships. It's not a huge number, but that is the revenue number that we're doing on an annual basis now. About 1,200 members, and that grows every day. So it's we'll need. Any questions?
You're easy. You're easy.
Well, absolutely. And I've only been on the job 23 days, but
Get
it'll.
Lance to fix the AC for that.
Yeah.
and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Hold open those dampers and
Man.
just pay somebody overtime to hold those things up.
And be with the guys at the harbor, and be with, it's only two of them.
Am I reading right on here that it says replace the 45-year-old HVAC unit in the council chambers?
Yes, sir. That's correct. That's the one we just turned back on because it was getting hot.
Thing blows cold,
Switch
be
on and
45 years old.
Yeah, it's
You know
cold.
what it costs to keep that thing going cold every month?
I don't want
You
to know.
don't know? We'll tell us.
Are you completed, Jim?
I am finished. Thanks, Mike.
Can we carry on?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, gentlemen, on item description, this is for the Civic Center. Of course, these are combined a little bit, but on the AC unit for the Civic Center, this is, of course, being carried over from this year. This wasn't able to be repaired this year, so the funds are still in the budget. The Civic Center.
Let me make a comment about that. They are, but as a new year, I don't want to mislead anybody and think that if you didn't spend it, it goes to the next budget. The next budget is and it's an easy sale to carry over, don't get me wrong, but don't think that because it didn't get spent, that it carries over to the next year. Let's say you had 20,000 out of 40,000 left, and your next year's budget was 40. Well, you don't have 60, you still have 40 for that year. I'm not going to do that to you.
I
but-
agree.
Okay.
I just wanted you to know that it wasn't repaired. Maybe I should have rephrased that yet. It's
No, you did
not
fine.
done.
You did fine. You're not even a problem with that, but there are department heads that feel like, I didn't spend that, and then when we put a number in the budget, they think, oh, I didn't spend that next year, so this is my new budget. Well, that's just not true.
I understand. We've been trying to spend this for 6 years.
We were in the process.
I've never seen the city of Fairhope have a problem spending money.
I don't know. It works against
Big
us.
project.
Where have you been?
Well, it's a time constraint issue. too.
Right, I understand.
Next item on the runway, that's already been acquired. That's why it was just labeled there.
What is the runway? Is the stage that goes out in front there?
Yes, sir, for
Okay.
Optimus Club when they do their pageants.
Right.
We were using a wooden runway, 3 of them, weighed about 200 pounds, and with one person having to move it, it was getting dangerous. So we were able to get a mobile runway now that's not as heavy.
Okay.
On the fire alarm upgrade, once again, that's something we've been trying to do for some time. Of course, it's out of code within the Civic Center and City Hall. There are some things that they brought it up to with ADA beacons and visual displays for the hearing impaired, but the panel is still not up to code. To get that up to code, we've gotten some bids, some estimates, and the cost that we got to do it with it being engineered was $25,000. That was the lowest one from Hiller and Hunter Security. Hunter Security was the lowest cost. And once again, that has not been completed. The bracing and flooring for the Civic Center stage, that's a safety concern. It's a big issue. The flooring on the Civic Center stage has been refinished, resanded down for the last 10 years since I've been here. It's getting to be where it's so thin that it's splintering, and you have dancers and performers that are getting hurt on it, and we're patching it the best we can. The bracing underneath, and Lance can account for this, it's very unstable. There's dips in the stage, shallow points, and to just remove that stage or go under there and fix it, it all needs to be taken off completely and replaced. The lighting and the LED, which we don't have LED now, but the Civic Center lighting controls, we have cup lights, we have the stage lights, which are halogen, and then there's 2 systems, one's for the stage lights themselves and one's for the dimmer light, the dimmer packs. These are 2 separate entities. They're on their last leg. They've probably been here when I was a child coming here to the events. We are actually taking off these packs and replacing them ourselves, every individual one. And it's getting where they don't make the parts for these components anymore. So we're at a dead stop with that as far as our lighting. The floor replacement in the auditorium and lobby, we're asking for that. That's been here, I believe, since 1984, as you can probably see on that. That's the tile floor.
It's coming back into style.
Actually,
I'm just kidding.
it's dark, so you don't see a lot.
Like your dad's ties, they eventually come back into style.
The floors replaced in the left and right dressing rooms. Those tiles have been here since I've been here for the last 10 years. They are cracking and buckling, but that is something that could be done together with the stage floor, since they are back on those wings. Chair carts and banquet tables. This is something that when there's 2 full-time staff members here, we have 1,000 chairs to pull out. We can't get inmates. 1,000 chairs, 2 people, it takes about 8 people to pull those chairs out. That's not unstacking them. These chair carts are going to help us with that. They're going to assist 60 chairs per cart. So that would save a lot of time. The banquet tables, these are something that we're needing because we are outsourcing a lot of our tables to other departments within the city, and sometimes they don't have places to store them or put them. They're made of Parker board most of the time, so they do fall apart over time. So we are going to we need to replace some of those. The awning for the northwest entrance, that's by the parking lot entrance. And what that is, we have one on the northeast entrance right now. We put it up about 8 years ago because of the rain coming in. Currently, when we get a heavy rain of about 1 inch or more, what happens is that water starts to fill up by that entrance and it starts flooding into the ballroom, the auditorium. We need some sort of awning over there to temporarily fix that and divert that water. And lastly, on the, well, not last, one more thing before the last item. Commercial freezer for the kitchen. Right now, we have a 1 household stand-up freezer, upright. when we have large events, or we need to store food for events, sometimes we have to take it over to the jail to store our food for the freezer when we have large cooking events here, especially employee luncheons, things of that nature, or if we were to have a hurricane and needed the space, it would be important to have that. And as was said earlier, the 45-year-old HVAC unit, council chambers. And that's all I have on my list, gentlemen.
Questions, council? Any questions? Everybody still awake? Okay, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Well, thank you all.
Thanks for saving the best for last.
Absolutely. Councilman, do y'all have any other comments or questions? Do y'all have anything particular we need to kind of bounce around here? I know we're missing 40% of the council, but they'll be fine. Anything? Okay. All right, well then, we'll go ahead and I'll call the meeting adjourned, and we will see everyone here on Monday, our regularly scheduled council meeting. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
staying
you.
late and being patient
Absolutely.
with us.
Yes, indeed.